Chapter 742. This is your son. Henyi. Henyi. This move was very despicable, yet very effective. Naturally, Helian Sunshue had no intention to perish together with him, and her figure immediately flitted, deftly avoiding the smashing range of the stone tablet. The seventh elder of the Yu clan, upon seeing the effectiveness of this move, could not hold back the uncanny cackle that escaped his mouth, spurring this stone tablet to give chase in Helian Sunshue's direction. Of course, he knew that with Helian Sunshue's speed, it was impossible for him to launch an attack against her, but he could drive her away. What he wanted was Ling Han's life. Helian Sunshue seemed to have an immensely apprehensive kind of unease about her, obviously being unwilling to engage in a reckless fight with the seventh elder of the Yu clan. Otherwise, given her strong physique, which was even above Ling Han's, she was absolutely qualified to shake off by force this sort of heavy-type spirit tool. This made Ling Han click his tongue in wonder, unable to comprehend it. Could it be that even now, the memory loss from before was still affecting Helian Sunshue, hampering and hindering her movements in fight as if her hands were tied and her feet were bound? The seventh elder of the Yu clan unleashed a torrent of attacks relentlessly, while Helian Sunshue successively retreated, instantly bringing about a complete turnabout in the situation. Honorable Lord, I have no wish to be likened to someone being of inexperienced mindset and persist in such unsophisticated pettiness with you. If you were to leave now, I will treat it like nothing ever happened. The seventh elder of the Yu clan exclaimed. He indeed did not want to end up having a feud with such an elite. Helian Sunshue merely gave a cold snort, and with a light pat of her snowy white hand, drew forth a whirling motion, giving rise to a wave of origin power. Patterns could be seen visibly gleaming and flashing, their powerful force exceedingly frightening. Hang, then I too shall cease wasting words with you. The seventh elder of the Yu clan sneered. Then, he abruptly turned around and directed his line of vision straight at Ling Han. I shall kill you first. This was after all the main objective of his being here in the first place. On this person was a 10,000-year-old treasured bead had to acquire it. Of course, killing Ling Han to avenge the death of Yu clan's descendant was also one of the reasons. But in comparison with a 10,000-year-old treasured bead, it had become something secondary, which he was doing just in passing. Ling Han smiled faintly as he uttered, Monster, just see how I will subdue you. He tossed out the heaven transformation bowl, which lit up as a series of patterns came alive, emitting a brilliant radiance. Boom, boom, boom. That stone tablet was already rapidly moving towards the heaven transformation bowl, and in the process was also boundlessly reducing in size. What? The seventh elder of the Yu clan was struck with great shock and felt that he was losing his connection with this spirit tool. He let out a violent roar as he charged in Ling Han's direction. He'd obtained this spirit tool in an ancient tomb, and it had helped him kill a few elites of the same level. It was his strongest trump card, and he absolutely could not lose it. On the other hand, what Ling Han wielded was merely a bowl. To actually be able to affect and absorb the stone tablet, this made the elder shocked beyond words, yet also exultant. If he could seize this bowl, then wouldn't he have gained yet another treasured item? His face was awash with greed, and he was stretching out his right hand to clutch Ling Han. Hang! A frosty snort filled with disdain suddenly rang out from behind him. Oh no! This thought of his had yet to entirely formulate when he felt a pain in his chest as his body was once again being hit and propelled through the air, seeing the figure of Helian Sunshue and his eyes becoming smaller and smaller. Sure enough, he was struck and sent flying again. But this time he was not so lucky, as Helian Sunshue caught up to him and started landing brutal strikes on him. He patted his rear and stood up as he protested, I see your temper has grown. Helian Sunshue stared at him ferociously, then suddenly struck forth, pong, 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 giving him a sound beating. Similarly, although her blows were heavy, none was fatal. As such, Ling Han only used his strength to shield his handsome face. Other parts? Well, go ahead and hit. He only felt odd this Hai Nyo was really becoming more and more abnormal. After Helian Sunshue had had her fill of beating, she finally stopped. She took off her cape, revealing the baby that was bundled up and which she was carrying behind her back. The baby was in deep sleep and blissful oblivion while sucking onto one of his fingers, looking extremely adorable. No wonder she had not fought recklessly against that stone tablet earlier. It should have been for her fear of hurting the baby. Otherwise, given her strength and temperament, so what if she forcefully fought it on? Could it be that this was her son? Helian Sun Shui carried the baby in her arms and gazed upon the child for a while. Then she handed the child over towards Ling Han as she warned in all seriousness. Take good care of him, but if he were to so much as loose a single strand of hair on his body, I will kill you. Kill you 10,000 times over. Ling Han instinctively caught the bundle, then scratched his head in bafflement as he remarked somewhat bemusedly, I don't seem to have the habit of raising kids for others. Had this Hainyo's mind been slapped silly and gone nuts again that she'd actually want him to rear children? This is your son, Helian Sun Shui said angrily. Chapter 743. Really became a father. Henyi. This is your son. Pooh. Ling Han instantly choked, then countered. Oi, though our relationship may be considered somewhat close, you should not spout nonsense. I am still a virgin. How would there be a son? You want me to raise a child for you and be a good Samaritan? Fine, but I won't be a fool. Helian Shui was furious. Clutching onto his chest, she lifted him up effortlessly, and snapped. Are you blind? Didn't you see the striking resemblance your son has to you? He is the spitting image of you. Ling Han looked intently. It was really hard for him to say much. In this life, he truly had only looked in the mirror a handful of times, so his familiarity with his own features had been regarding his past life all this while. He could not help but bare his teeth in the future. If he were to have any children with the heavenly phoenix divine maiden or Zhu Xian heir, then would the kid be considered his or his predecessors? Oh, what a mess. This matter is seemingly hard to work out. Helian Sun Shui became even more furious. He still dared let your mind wander at this moment? She gave Ling Han a shake and reiterated, Listen, this is your son, raise him well. When I come back, if I were to discover his missing even a single strand of hair, I will mince you to pieces and feed you to the fishes. Ling Han made a waving gesture with his hand and said in response, Fine, I shall believe that he is really my son for the time being. Of course he is your son. Helian Sun Shui interrupted. Ling Han sighed in exasperation and pointed out, How come I don't remember having done that with you? A becoming blush spread out over Helian Sun Shui's pretty face, yet with her face masked, she feared not it being seen. She mumbled, Have you forgotten about that time when obtaining the thunderclap 9th heaven? Ling Han was startled. At that time, this foolish girl charged into the thunderclap region, and he wanted to pull her back, but in the end, was also whirled in by the thunderclap, and both their clothes were torn to pieces and entangled together. Could it be that during that time he had actually slept with this girl by accident? Fuck, my virgin body. Ling Han gave a miserable cry in his ear that had actually lost this life's first time in a state of vagueness. He stammered slightly. Really such a bullseye? One time and conceived already? You think I wanted this? Helian Sun Shui was riled once again, raising her fist to hit, yet still managed to refrain from doing so. Not long after I returned to the sea race, I discovered I was with a child, so I went into hiding and was planning to deliver the baby in secret. However, the truth still leaked out. Now, I am being hunted down by my clan and the Shenyu royal clan, two mighty forces. Otherwise, would I need you to take care of the child? Ling Han did not ask her why she did not abort the baby. With a face full of amazement, he was looking intently at his son, filled with awe. He actually had a son already. In his past life, he was obsessed with alchemy. Although there were countless beauties who threw themselves into his arms, he actually would not even look at them twice. Now, a child of his own, with his flesh and blood, actually lay in his arms as if immediately giving rise to a certain kind of spiritual connection, making him feel extremely excited and emotionally moved. I have a son already? He raised his head and looked at Helian Sun Shui. Apologies that I only bore you one, and did not give you a daughter as well so that you may have both a son and a daughter. Helian Sun Shui gritted her teeth, adamantly holding on to animosity. Ling Han was wild with joy, and without thinking much replied, Never mind, we can still have one later on. Helian Sun Shui was indignant. She once again clutched and lifted Ling Han up. You still want to do me? Helian Sun Shui coldly snorted and uttered, Why did you think I sought you out? Were it not for me being chased by two mighty forces, don't think that you would ever see me in this whole life. For now, you take good care of our child. I know you have a spirit tool that can take in living beings, so if our child were to stay at that place of yours, no one would discover him. I will divert the attention of the pursuers. If I do not die, the child you must hand over to me, and we shall never be in contact at all. What's this rubbish you are spouting? Ling Han was also becoming angry. Without me, would you have been able to conceive the child by yourself? I don't care how I slept with you at that time, now that you are my woman, and have also even borne me a son already, do you think I will just watch you die? Hellion Sun Shui felt slightly touched by Ling Han's words, but she immediately rebuked, don't let your emotions affect you. You are totally unaware of the formidable strength of Hellion and Xianyu, the two mighty royal clans. Just in terms of shattering void tier elites, there are already 30-odd of them. There are even more so, up to several hundred of heaven tier cultivators. And this is just merely one clan, not two. Indeed, they were very strong, but when he recalled that the 5 great sects at least also had over 100 shattering void tier elites, Ling Han then became unconcerned. He then remarked, you only know that I have a spirit tool that can take in living beings, but what you don't know is actually what is the extent of the strength of this spirit tool. Fine, don't resist my divine sense from wrapping around you, and I shall bring you into it to experience it. Once you've entered into the Black Tower, then you can just take care of our child in earnest. Given choice, Hellion Sun Shui naturally also would not want to be apart from her son, so she hesitated for a moment, then decided, fine, come on. Ling Han wrapped his divine sense around Hellion Sun Shui and his son, and the 3 of them entered into the Black Tower together. What? Hellion Sun Shui was shocked. This space was actually so huge? This was practically a mystery realm. So, how is it? Ling Han said with a smile. When I have also entered into this place, the spatial spirit tool will then transform into a mustard seed, and even a shattering void tier elite also would not be able to discover it, so it will be entirely safe here. In a flash, something suddenly dawned on Hellion Sun Shui. It was no wonder that the first time she stumbled upon Ling Han, as she struck forth a blow towards him, Ling Han actually vanished into thin air. All of a sudden it turned out it was because of having such a rare treasure. Fine, I will stay here a while first, hide for 10 to 20 years, wait for the unrest to subside and the turmoil to calm somewhat, then depart. Giving a nod, she acceded. Iya! The child suddenly woke up. Yet when he discovered that he was being held by a stranger, he did not cry and just gazed at Ling Han wide-eyed, the black and white of his big eyes in stark contrast. He even stretched out his chubby small hand and grinned as he grabbed towards Ling Han's face. Ling Han could not contain the strong paternal love that surged through him as he voluntarily brought his face closer and let his son grab it. The kid promptly gave a hearty laugh while he kept on rubbing Ling Han's face as if treating it as a plaything. Ling Han smiled as he said, the kid's strength is really strong, he will definitely show promise in future. This was not just mere boasting or singing one's own praises, for the kid's strength was indeed great, and in no way below that of the 9th layer of the body refining tier. Hellion Sun Shui proudly exclaimed, that is a given, his true dragon bloodline is even above that of mine. It must be the genes of my Ling clan. Ling Han directly disregarded her words. Hellion Sun Shui's pretty face twitched. This man was really shameless. It was obviously because the son possessed the true dragon bloodline that he could have had such horrifying tremendous strength, and how could the human race possibly accomplish that? Woo-wah! The kid suddenly cried. Ling Han was at a loss and queried, what's the matter? Hellion Sun Shui rolled her eyes at him, then replied, our son is hungry already. She took the kid back into her arms and was just about to raise her shirt, but then she actually gave Ling Han a pointed stare. She ordered, why aren't you turning around? Tisk, it's not like it's something I've not seen before, moreover it's so flat. Who would want to look at it? Ling Han spread out his hands and turned around. Hellion Sun Shui ground her teeth and felt like killing someone again. Chapter 745. Return to North Region. Henyi. I've got to send a message to the Purple Moon Empire, Ling Han said. Now he and Ma Duo Bao could be considered allies, although his own strength was not worth mentioning. If the sea race were to suddenly launch an attack from both sides together with the 5 great sects, then the Purple Moon Empire was likely to be wiped out. Since Hellion Sun Shui was already one of his own people, Ling Han had explained the plan to split open the skies to her, which caused Hellion Sun Shui to feel shock beyond comparison. She had only thought of unifying the Northern Sea, and then to use the strength of the Northern Sea to resist the reckoning. She didn't expect Ling Han to have such a big ambition, wanting to split open the skies and allow the entire realm to ascend into the realm of the immortals. You don't have to worship me like this. It's good enough to know it in the heart. I am not a vain person, Ling Han said, smiling. In front of his own people, he didn't mind to add in a few words of teasing. Show off. Hellion Sun Shui rolled her eyes at him, and actually looked quite sassy. Had it not been that her chest was too flat, she would be extremely attractive. I will bring the news to the Purple Moon Empire first. Then we will return to the North region. Ling Han said. They will fight to their heart's content in the middle state. We will first unify the East, South, West, and North, the 4 regions. Should Ma Duobao win, I will then give him the country and have him split open the sky. If he can't, then I will. Relatively speaking, the middle state was in fact the central area of the war. Its area was bigger than the 4 regions combined, but one also couldn't underestimate the 4 regions. One had to know that the population of the desolate north was close to 1 billion, and the power of the nation of every country could spark the rise of a flower blossom tier elite would still be quite staggering. Let us surround the city with villages, Ling Han said, laughing. They came out from the Black Tower and headed towards the training camp. After Xiao Yongnian was found by them, Ling Han asked him to hand over a letter either to the Flame King or the Lunar King. The letter informed that the sea race was likely to send troops. This was so that Ma Duobao could make preparations. Yet, Xiao Yongnian was somewhat troubled, and stared at Hellion Sun Shui as if he wanted to snatch her away for some interrogation. Ling Han quickly smiled and said, "This is my wife and the child's mother. She wouldn't leave and was playing around with me." Xiao Yongnian couldn't help but wear a strange expression. He muttered in his heart, "Both of you make a weird couple." So much foreplay displayed without a consideration for others who might not be immune to it. However, since Hellion Sun Shui was an elite of the heaven tier, he naturally dared not underestimate Ling Han's letter. It had to be submitted. However, he was just a colonel. It would be impossible to see the 8 kings directly. Therefore, he only passed this letter up to the level of general. Naturally, there would be big shots who would give due consideration to the letter, and whether to continue sending it up the ladder or otherwise, they'd decide. Ling Han again secretly returned to the Restore Heaven Academy. After changing his appearance, he contacted the Rain Emperor and Mu Rongqing, telling them of his plan and leaving them with a lot of alchemical pills. He further called over Yuan Changhe and the Li siblings to return together with him to the North region. After more than a month, they've returned to the North region. Ling Han had reached the peak of the spiritual infant tier, but he wasn't in a hurry to rush towards the deity transformation tier. With the great power of a spirit of one of the 5 elements, a breakthrough was comparable to an existence of the peak of the deity transformation tier. Although still not able to defeat Ling Han, it could be considered the 3rd most powerful elite on this side. The rate of cultivation of Yuan Changhe and the others was extremely fast. Following close to an alchemy emperor, how could they fear not having medicine to consume? If it wasn't because Ling Han was afraid that upgrading the cultivation level by means of consuming alchemical pills would lead to instability, it was estimated that Yuan Changhe would have already charged into the deity transformation tier. This being the case, Yuan Changhe had also reached the peak of the spiritual infant tier, and his cultivation level was on the same level as Ling Han. The Li siblings had also reached the peak of the flower blossom tier in quick succession, and were not rushing to upgrade their levels. Following Ling Han's advice, they would do their utmost to improve their foundation. These people were the backbone for Ling Han in building a country, although they might be a bit pitiful at the moment. Ling Han had 2 level 10 spiritual tools. When he came to the region's barrier, he simply took one of them out. When he touched the barrier, the spiritual tool recovered automatically, and created a screen of light, which protected them as they left, without being affected at all. The barrier was used to isolate the 3 levels of spiritual infant, deity transformation, and heaven tiers. Against the shattering void tier, it would be useless. The existence of the region's barrier is so that the elites would not be able to communicate, leading to the decline of the martial arts of the 4 regions and conveniently providing better control, Ling Han lamented. If it weren't for the 5 great sects, the martial arts of the realm ought to be flourishing. We would have been able to enter into the immortal realm after reaching the shattering void tier and no longer have to consume the natural resources of this world, thus giving birth to more powerful elites. This was what the 5 great sects had caused through these 10,000 years. At least in his past life, these region barriers did not exist. Perhaps due to the revolt of Zi Shuexian, The 5 great sects were even stricter in controlling the communication between the regions. After entering the north region, their speed had dropped. It wouldn't take long for them to return to the desolate north. Night fell. It was the first time that they had stopped for the night and not continued to hurry on their journey. A campfire was made, and food was being cooked. The delicious but strange tentacles soup was brought out again, and with the addition of the essence of the Mariety's treasured pearl and a few drops of spiritual fluid, it became an extremely nourishing supplement. At this time, the gluttons were not limited to just Ling Han and Hu Niu. Helian Sun Shui was both a heaven-tier elite and body arts cultivator, so her appetite wasn't lacking in any way. The 3 people were grabbing for food, causing Hu Niu to keep grinding her teeth. This silly big girl. She not only snatched her Ling Han, but also grabbed her food. Really too awful. They decided to take a good rest tonight and rid themselves of the exhaustion for the past few days. Due to the fear of the sea race's pursuit, they naturally entered the Black Tower to rest as it was the safest place. Ling Han had coaxed his son and Hu Niu, these 2 children, to sleep. He was about to fall asleep himself when he saw Helian Sun Shui walk over. "What, still not sleeping?" he asked. Helian Sun Shui did not answer, her eyes flickering with an ominous glint. When she came over, she pushed Ling Han down onto the bed and started groping him all over. Hey, what are you doing?" Ling Han was shocked. Was her desire really so strong? "You slept with me, but don't want to bear the responsibility?" Helian Sun Shui said through clenched teeth. "I am not that kind of person. If you want to say anything, please do so nicely. What's the meaning of you taking my clothes off?" Ling Han mumbled weakly. "Hey, you've already gotten into my bed, making me think of you every few days. You don't want to take up responsibility for it?" Helian Sun Shui continued to pull off his clothes. "Let me count for you. How many times did you owe me within this year?" Chapter 746. That night. Henyi. A night had passed, and Ling Han felt a kind of faint melancholy. In the heated exchange with Helian Sun Shui, he had had absolute dominance and gained the upper hand during the first half, tossing her about as she wailed, Don't. But women were really odd creatures, for they said, don't, but in actual fact enjoyed it tremendously. After that, in the second half, it turned into him being the one that was crying, don't, and in the end being turned over by the female dragon who became the master, conversely tossing him about. Why was this so? The inexperienced Ling Han summed this all up as his level now being inferior to the other parties. Regardless of origin power level, or level of brute force, perhaps he could only compete with her after he broke through to the heaven tier. At this moment, he was still lying on the bed, resting, while Helian Sun Shui was already in front of the mirror, combing through her soft tresses. The black hair akin to a waterfall was in stark contrast to the fair ivory of her satiny smooth skin. Have you not looked your fill? Helian Sun Shui gazed at Ling Han through the bronze mirror, her cheerful mood obvious in the slightly upturned corners of her lips. Ling Han let out a sigh and replied dryly, I was thinking that hereafter, I will have to work hard to diligently knead those 2 small mounds on your bosom into 2 peaks, or else if you were to cover your face with your hair, who would know whether it's your front or your back? Ling Han. Helian Sun Shui instantly flew into a storming rage. You want to die? She spat out word by word. Well, it's already a fact that you have small breasts anyway, Ling Han whispered under his breath, but did not provoke this woman any further. She was, after all, the mother of his child. The 2 of them came out of the house and saw that Hu Niu was looking after the child, playing fly with Ling Jian Shui, all of a sudden flinging the kid into the air as high as a few thousand meters, after which she caught him into her arms just as he was close to reaching the ground. The kid was ecstatic, his acute excitement evident in his incessant screams of delight, blissfully unaware that Helian Sun Shui was actually scared to death witnessing such an act. So long as Hu Niu were to carelessly miss, then her son would definitely fall to his death into broken pieces. She hastily leaped into the air and flew over, swiftly taking her son into her protective embrace. She then turned towards Ling Han and demanded, Quick, you tell her properly. This little girl was only but a child herself, not knowing the severity or grave nature of such precarious acts, which could quite possibly bring about a mishap at any minute. Ling Han nodded and walked over and gently admonished, Can only play fly in here, but not outside. N. Hu Niu promised in a crisp, clear voice. Helian Sun Shui felt like fainting out of exasperation. Was that even considered a warning? What she didn't know was that there was still Small Tower's existence here. How would it possibly let anything go amiss with Ling Han's son? Hu Niu held Ling Han's hand and walked over to have breakfast. The others also woke up one after another, then, after washing up, sat waiting to partake of their meals. In fact, with their strength, it did not matter whether they ate or not, but given the food in the Black Tower was so tasty and furthermore also highly nourishing, of course it was something not to be missed. Ling Han gathered the ingredients, then Zhu Xian'er, Li Zixian, and Helian Sun Shui all went about getting busy. Ling Han, yesterday you and that big stupid girl had a fight? Niu heard her cries and screams. It was most gratifying, and Niu even wanted to rush over to help you, just that I couldn't get in. Hu Niu remarked while waiting anxiously. Pa, Helian Sun Shui suddenly knocked down a pot of clear water by accident, then directed a murderous gaze at Hu Niu. Someone had actually eavesdropped through the wall last night. The faces of Zhu Xian'er and Li Zixian flushed bright red. Although they were both unmarried chaste young ladies, yet in the dead of night, with everyone already asleep, a man and a woman fought. It didn't take much to figure out that it was the kind of fight for adults only. Ling Han seemingly was also struck by a sudden coughing fit as he cleared his throat and chided, "Little children need to sleep more to grow up faster. Go to bed earlier from now on, don't become a night owl." Hu Niu gave an "oh," pointing her finger at Helian Sun Shui's chest, and said, "Niu will definitely sleep early, must not become like big stupid Niu so flat-chested." Helian Sun Shui was driven mad today. It was already not the first time that she was being criticized for having a flat chest. So what of a flat chest? Did it cause you any hindrance? Ling Han roared with hearty laughter and brought Hu Niu to sit on his lap. That's why Hu Niu must eat more meat, have more milk and vegetables, and eat more of everything. This one Niu likes. Hu Niu was all smile saint eating precisely her inborn attribute. After breakfast, they left the Black Tower and continued to hasten on with the journey. Zhu Xian'er had felt a little resentful all along. Ling Han, before reuniting with his old flame, had undoubtedly said that he would not speak of love, yet in the end, this guy directly got a son already, making her feel very jealous. No matter what, she was the one who'd met Ling Han first, but it was Helian Sun Shui who first gave birth to a son. While no one was paying attention, she moved near to Ling Han and whispered to him, "Xian'er also wants to bear you children." Ling Han couldn't stop his heart from throbbing. Zhu Xian'er's beauty was not any less than the heavenly phoenix divine maidens, and they had also gone through thick and thin together. The sentiment between them had already surpassed that of friendship. But because of the conflict in his heart, it had drifted slightly further away from being love. But this did not stop Ling Han from appreciating the other's beauty. She was an extraordinarily beautiful woman, her beauty unrivaled and devastating, enough to cause the fall of a city. Whoever looked upon her would find her pleasing to both the eye and the mind. With those words coming out from the mouth of such extreme beauty, wishing to bear one's own children, Ling Han naturally felt his mouth dry. He patted Zhu Xian'er's sweet-smelling shoulder and remarked, "Thank you, but my affair with Hai Niu was rather muddle-headed." "Then last night was also muddle-headed?" Zhu Xian'er's beautiful eyes were filled with a myriad of emotions revolving in their depths. This put Ling Han on the spot. After all, he could not say that he was unable to resist the female dragon's strength and was being forcefully getting laid. Who would believe it? Within the Black Tower, his existence was akin to that of a god, so could he not have safeguarded his innocence? Ling Han only laughed dryly. Luckily, Zhu Xian'er's emotional intelligence was after all of an extremely high level, so she would not make Ling Han be stuck in an embarrassing situation, unable to back down with good grace. She was only pressing and being forceful in such a way to let Ling Han know, and not let to forget there was still someone infatuated with him who was still persistently waiting for him. 7 days later, they passed through the fallen moon gorge and returned to the desolate north. First of all, of course, they'd see his parents. The traveling group arrived at the Ling clan residence. The footman still recognized Ling Han, and immediately dashed off to announce the news. "Young master is back." This was like a whirlwind having swept through the entire Ling clan residence. Ling Dongxing and Yu Hongchang hurriedly rushed out. Their son had been away for over a year, making them wait for his return anxiously, their hearts wrought with extreme worry. Lu Yutong and Li Xichan followed close behind Ling Han's parents. Their coy expressions were filled with feelings of affection, distinctly touching to the heart, making Ling Han inwardly heave a sigh. It seemed the love debts he had accumulated had become somewhat more. Zhu Xian'er and Helian Sun Shui naturally were known faces. Yu Hongchang looked at Li Zixian and thought in her heart, could this be another prospective daughter-in-law candidate? This child. Everyone had their eyes fixed on Ling Jianshui, who was being carried in the arms of Helian Sun Shui. Ling Han laughed mischievously and beamed. Father, mother, this is your grandson. His name is Ling Jianshui. Both parents were elated. There were 3 ways to be unfilial, but having no sons was the worst. Their son was always not around, yet suddenly brought back a grandson off course that made them wild with joy. The eyes of both Lu Yutong and Li Xichan cast on Ling Han were those of resentment. Similar to those of Zhu Xian'er's as well, there was almost enough to gather for a round of mahjong. At night, the Ling clan residents hosted an elaborate feast to celebrate the addition of the 3rd generation to the Ling clan, the flourishing of the family. After this night, Ling Han then went to the Rain Country. He wanted to take over the imperial authority of the Rain Country to open up the path towards conquest. This was Dragon Blood Tyrant Ginseng, though not of the very early generation, the Ginseng Lord that had been bathed in the true dragon's blood, but rather its later generation of who knew how many years. Yet it was still considered as a treasure by the Heaven tier elites, as it could actually give them a boost to rise into the Shattering Void tier. Now it was merely a breakthrough to the Flower Blossom tier. How simple would it be? The old Rain Emperor immediately opened his eyes, and only spared Ling Han a glance before promptly soaring into the sky. He was about to break through, and would possibly cause great wreckage, so he naturally could not remain at the Imperial Palace. He relied on power of the nation to advance into the Flower Blossom tier, bloomed a false divine flower, and was incredibly familiar with the Flower Blossom tier, so, in fact, his divine seed had been sown long ago. He was just unable to groom a real divine flower. Now, under the medicinal effects of the Dragon Blood Tyrant Ginseng, the divine seed immediately sprouted. It'd grow very quickly and flourish into full bloom. The Flower Blossom tier. Ha 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 ha. The old Rain Emperor guffawed. His body seemed to have received nurturing at a pace visible to the naked eye. It became sturdy, the muscles swelled, and a luster reappeared on the dull hair atop his head. He then briskly descended in one step, turning towards Ling Han to address him with a cupped hand salute. Many thanks to young friend's help. How could he not be happy? Now, he was already a genuine Flower Blossom tier being, and in addition to the supportive power of the nation, his maximum combat strength possibly had reached the peak of the Flower Blossom tier. Ling Han smiled faintly and remarked, I reckon the words I am going to say next will make you stab me with a sword. Before coming here, he had naturally made appropriate preparations. Heaven-grade cultivation technique. Furthermore, it's a complete one with all 9 layers. One would be able to break through to the Heaven tier by cultivating accordingly. Heavens, there's even a Heaven-grade martial arts technique. This is an Earth-grade alchemical pill. The old Rain Emperor and Qi Chongyu exclaimed in shock, their faces twitching madly. The key of this war was conquest, and not slaughter. As much as possible, they were to avoid damage. With an elite at the peak of the spiritual infant tier and an elite at the peak of the Flower Blossom tier as commanding officer, how could they not be invincible? In merely a month's time, the 2 great armies had utterly defeated the other 8 nations. Even assembling an allied army was useless, and they could only raise a white flag and surrender. Ling Han could no longer suppress his cultivation level, and was forced to break through to the deity transformation tier. His initial plan was to continue suppressing his cultivation for a while longer. After all, the rate of his breaking through was too fast, but he was really incapable of suppressing it any longer, and could only choose to break through. Deity transformation tier, that was to transform the spiritual infant inside his body into a deity. Naturally, that was transformation into a deity inside his own body, and this was another leap. To Ling Han, this step was incredibly easy to take. Firstly, he had really accumulated too much energy, and secondly, in his last life, he had already taken this step. As a result, it was natural that everything progressed smoothly. And now I'm already in the deity transformation tier. Ling Han was very rueful. He had originally thought that in this lifetime, he would only be able to return to the heaven tier in his 30s, but from the looks of things, he would probably be able to do so in another 1 or 2 years' time. Firstly, the environment for martial arts in this lifetime was really too good, and secondly, it was also because he had obtained the Black Tower that could endlessly provide cultivation resources for his use, and added together with the fact that he himself was the Alchemy Emperor, it was natural that his cultivation rate was even faster than before. Next, we should launch a military campaign in the North region. Chapter 749. Arriving at the Winter Moon Sect. Henyi. Setting out to conquer the North region was not only for the purpose of expanding territory and strengthening the power of the nation. There was another significance to this course of action, and that was to settle the feud with the Winter Moon Sect once and for all. Ling Dongxing had already reached the peak of the spiritual pedestal tier, but for making the last step to advance to the Flower Blossom tier, theoretically, he would still need a dozen, or even 20 years' time. However, Ling Dongxing could not wait that long, and neither could Ling Han. If it was another person, they could only watch and wait helplessly, but Ling Han was the Alchemy Emperor, so what if his talent was a bit weak? Consume alchemical pills. There were as many as 100 stalks of Dragon Blood Tyrant Ginseng by now, and aside from setting a few aside for sowing, the rest could all be used as medicinal ingredients. How scary was that? Ling Dongxing forcefully raised his cultivation to the Flower Blossom tier, and added with the fact that Ling Han had already established a nation and taken control of a massive territory. He, Ling Dongxing, was revered as father of the reigning emperor, and was naturally capable of using the power of the nation. With the continuing expansion of the Ling Empire, the power of the nation would only become stronger and stronger. Could such a Ling Dongxing still be incapable of defeating Ao Feng? Before setting out, Ling Han went once more to the old mine area in the Fire Country. Innumerable powerful elites were buried underground there, and could very possibly become the means to learn underworld cultivation and open the way to the underworld. To this realm, that similarly was an incomparably awful matter. Ling Han was currently racing against time. Not only did he have to split open the skies before the 5 sects of the immortal realm made their move, but also had to do it before a bunch of living corpses did. When he arrived, that giant silver spider actually appeared. It moved its giant legs that seemed akin to divine spears, and was breathing in the direction of the moon, seeming as if it was absorbing the essence of the moon. The higher his cultivation level, the more terrifying he sensed this giant spider was. An awesome creature on the level of a 15-eyed great corpse king. This giant silver spider should have just happened to venture out to cultivate, and he had just so coincidentally come upon it. Otherwise, with how this giant spider disdained to cast a glance on him, how could it be possible that it would deliberately come out for him? Ling Han estimated his own battle prowess. The higher the cultivation level, the more difficult it was to battle an opponent on a higher cultivation level. That applied to Ling Han as well. After he had advanced into the deity transformation tier, Ling Han's current battle prowess was gauged as 1 star of the heaven tier, but when he'd previously broken through to the spiritual infant tier, his battle prowess could match 9 battle stars of the deity transformation tier. However, he was still the emperor of the Great Ling dynasty, and as long as he was still in his own territory, he could draw upon the power of the nation to strengthen his own battle prowess. This could add on another star of battle prowess to him, and this was still the power upgrade he had after he had united the whole desolate north. If he could unify the whole north region as well, then the power upgrade would at least be 5 stars, and with the unifying of all 4 regions, that would be even more awesome. Reaching 10 stars would be more than enough in the condition that Ling Han's body could withstand such terrifying power of the nation. With the installation of power from the Black Tower, his battle prowess naturally spiked to the Shattering Void tier, but the key was, how many stars of Shattering Void tier could he reach? After all, the desolate north was too small. Although it helped him to add on another battle star of battle prowess onto the foundations of heaven tier, in the case of a Shattering Void tier, this increase could practically be ignored. He was definitely still unable to defeat this giant spider. Or so Ling Han thought. Shaking his head, he gave up the idea of wanting to investigate further. After all, it would be too wasteful to use the installation of power from the Black Tower here. He was just planning to turn around and leave when he stopped in his steps. Although the old mine area was eternally enshrouded in black mist, and seemed eerie and frightful, this time, it looked even worse. That black mist was thicker than before, as if it had turned solid. It was as black as ink, which made it appear even more terrifying. Those people underground were coming out. Ling Han pricked up his ears to listen closely. There seemed to be someone whispering in the surroundings, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not clearly hear what was being said, just as if it was the talk of ghosts. He left. This place was too bizarre and extremely freaky. Without enough power, it would be best if he did not hang out around here. The army moved and set out towards Fallen Moon Forge, starting a full invasion of the North region. Ling Han revealed his status as a heaven-grade alchemist, and everywhere he passed, the Alchemist Society would be the first to surrender. What a joke. He was a heaven-grade alchemist, and to them, he was their god. Now that their god wanted them to follow him, how could they refuse? And the Alchemist Society's status was in a league of its own. They possessed vast influence, which led to many cities directly surrendering without a battle. What Ling Han wanted to do, on the contrary, was not to conquer the whole world. It would be too easy for him to conquer the North region. Any general under his command would be an invincible existence in any region. What was most important to cultivators? Power, naturally. With enough power, others naturally could only submit. Furthermore, it was not something unacceptable for them to accept a heaven-grade alchemist as their liege. After a mere 7 days, they had advanced all the way to the front of the mountain gates of the Winter Moon sect. The last time he'd been here, only with the installation of power from the Black Tower could he manage to match an elite of the spiritual infant tier. But now, his normal battle prowess had already advanced to the heaven tier, and could practically match his prowess in his last life. If the installation of power from the Black Tower was included, he could even match a shattering void tier elite and destroy this sect with a single finger. Your Majesty, do we attack immediately? A young man asked. He was Jin Wuji, and had met Ling Han long ago in Yuan City. At the time, he had even fought Ling Han because of his younger brother. At that time, he had not followed the others to the Winter Moon sect. Instead, he had married a beautiful bride and began to enjoy life. But now with Ling Han's return, he too enlisted into the army to assist Ling Han. He had just broken through into the spiritual ocean tier, so his power was naturally not something that Ling Han cared about. However, what Ling Han needed were people that he could trust enough, and thus Jin Wuji was naturally placed in an important position. But there were even more of his old acquaintances that were in the Winter Moon sect. The first target of attack was the Winter Moon sect, firstly because it was indeed very near, and secondly because Ling Han wanted to gather these old friends of his under his banner. Ling Han nodded and said, "Small Rock, you take the lead." The rock spirit cried out, and began its charge towards the Winter Moon sect. It had now broken through to the deity transformation tier, and added with the special traits it had as a spirit of one of the 5 elements, its battle prowess could match a cultivator at the peak of the deity transformation tier. A single punch had shattered the mountain protection great array that the Winter Moon sect had. Ling Han invited Ling Dongxing out. Unfortunately, if it had been 5 years ago, Ling Dongxing would naturally die with him without a doubt. But now he had his wife, his son, and a grandson too, so how could he be willing to die with this great foe of his? He merely strengthened his defenses, and waited until Ao Feng had expended all his energy. By then, his only fate would naturally be death. On the path to the netherworld, "I'll wait for you both," Ao Feng finally declared with a harsh voice and expression as he ran out of strength. His gaze was so venomous that he looked like he wanted to devour them. Pooh! His chest was pierced through by a single strike from Ling Dongxing. The demon birth sword pierced his chest, and all signs of life were immediately completely destroyed. With a vital point struck directly by a level 10 spirit tool, even a heaven-tier cultivator could not possibly survive. What more when Ao Feng was merely in the flower blossom tier? Ling Dongxing could not help but feel extremely rueful. He had initially thought that he could not possibly get his revenge in this lifetime, because he knew that Ao Feng's talent in martial arts was indeed above his own. Moreover, the latter had a colossal existence like the Winter Moon sect backing him up, so the gap between the two would only become larger and larger. But who asked him to have a good son? Ling Han did not start a massacre. He had spared all of Ao Feng's children. He was not one who enjoyed mindless bloodshed. In truth, as long as someone did not touch his bottom line, he had always been one to opt for peaceful discussion before violence. At the same time, he was a lazy person. When he discovered that Hellion Sun Shui had exceptional leadership talents, he had her take charge of all national matters. She was, after all, a member of a royal clan in the Northern Sea. And how big was the Northern Sea? She had confidence to manage even the enormous Northern Sea. What more when the current territory was only so small? Helian Sun Shui accepted the task gladly. In her eyes, this throne would naturally belong to her own son in future. So what would be wrong with helping out her son? However, in front of outsiders, she changed her appearance with the use of the disguise pill to avoid being found out by the sea race. As for the territorial expansion, with Yuan Changhe and Li Fengyu as great generals and the Rock Spirit as support, there was no place that could not be subdued, at least not in the North region, so he was naturally at ease. There were others to handle both internal and external matters, so what else did he have to worry about? If he had to do everything himself, then what was the use of so many followers? He very happily became a man who told others to work but did nothing himself. He only had one request, and that was to pacify the hearts of the people and prioritize stability. That was because the purpose of the expedition was not to expand his borders, but obtain the power of the nation. Only when the hearts of the people were loyal would power of the nation be strong. Under Ling Han's command, the great Ling Nation began a wide recruitment of troops, and laid out extremely attractive conditions. Another aspect was to improve the lives of the people so as to allow every citizen to have the opportunity to cultivate and, at minimum, be able to reach the 4th or 5th layer of the body refining tier to keep them fit so as to raise the living standards of the whole nation. Due to Zhu Xian'er's strong suggestion, Ling Han decided to take a trip to the Half-Moon sect. If they could recruit the Half-Moon sect, they would be able to avoid bloodshed, which would also make Zhu Xian'er feel better. After all, this was her sect. Ling Han and Zhu Xian'er naturally could not be absent. Helian Sun Shui, meanwhile, remained behind to handle national matters. Lu Yutong and Li Xichan continued to accompany Ling Han's parents, and only Hu Niu, Rabbit, and the gold-seeking rat followed. Ling Jianshui had not been weaned off his milk yet, so he naturally could only stick with Helian Sun Shui, but Ling Han had purposely subdued a few white jade cows that were still nursing so as to avoid his son not having enough milk. The milk produced by this type of demonic beast was the most nutritious. This naturally made Helian Sun Shui very displeased. Her breasts were just a little small, but she really had abundant milk, all right? Ling Han and the others set out and advanced towards the Half-Moon sect. 7 days later, they arrived at their destination, and with Zhu Xian'er to inform the sect of their arrival, they soon received summons. Next, Ling Han revealed a bit of his prowess, which naturally intimidated the Half-Moon sect. None of them dared to be careless, and they prepared to duck into the Black Tower at any moment. There's a kind of implicit charm that makes Lord Rabbit feel light and airy as if I were about to fly here. Rabbit suddenly exclaimed. Ling Han sensed for a while. Although this purple fog did not contain spiritual qi, there really seemed to be some kind of substance that the world outside did not possess in it. He could not identify what it was, but merely felt that this thing seemed to possess a high level. Just like level 10 precious metal completely dominated over level 1 material, it possessed a natural advantage. It's no wonder that Xian'er's master would come here. Ling Han nodded. There was no cultivation technique above 7th tier in the North region. Thus, if Zhu Xian'er's master wanted to break through to the deity transformation tier, she could only think of some other way. The purple fog affected visibility and blocked divine sense, causing the group of 3 to be only capable of seeing about 6 meters ahead. Empire could snatch away time liquid to passage was also the same. While the living dead in the old mine area died to live and dug their own graves to become entities of the netherworld. Unawares. Could there be even more such cases in this realm? They had just been thinking about ambush. They continued and onward. They really did meet with an ambush as a pile of purple fog and transformed into demonic beasts multiple times to attack them. It was astonishingly fast. It was an ambush definitely not inferior to the heaven tier. In this space where visibility was poor and divine sense was blocked, formed his hands into seals. This was really a headache. Clapping down in the direction of the purple leopard. The demonic beasts formed by this purple fog all had deity transformation tier battle covered with patterns that exuded easily destroyed by Ling Han. Just like the light of the universe, they still left behind many injuries on Ling Han's hands. Although he had restored the earth overturning seal single-handed version, even body of diamond would find it very difficult to recover. Naturally, it was stronger to enter into the Black Tower and drive out that strange energy using the power of the Black Tower first. Opening its large mouth to bite him, a river appeared ahead of them. It was obviously formed by fog, the substance rushing in the river channel was not water, eerie white fangs and blood-red tongue, which made it look very twisted. Of lightning. Pang! The earth-overturning seal clapped down on the purple leopard's body. Golden light shot out in all directions, and it instantly exploded from the impact, turning
What
back
was
into
the source
purple
of this
fog
river,
that vanished
a
in the
lightning
valley.
pool?
Although the
Ling
opponent
Han's
could not even
expression
last a
changed
single
as he
strike,
looked at the splashing
Ling Han's
waves.
expression was a
The
little
level of
serious as he
lightning
said.
was so high that
It
with a
had the
single
battle
glance,
prowess of a single
he
star of
felt
the
a
deity
sense of danger
transformation
in the
tier.
depth of his soul.
Furthermore, he indeed learned the body of
capable
lightning,
of using a
and
sliver
bathing
of
in power
lighting,
of regulation.
he would only
be nourished and not
He
harmed.
raised his hand,
But this
and
had
they
a
could see
premise.
there was actually
the
a
lightning
wound
had
on
to
his
be pure
palm,
and without
though it
martial
was very
intent,
shallow.
or else
Its
it would
battle
conflict
prowess
with
of
his
merely
own
a
martial
single
intent,
star of the
leading
deity
to a great
transformation
backlash.
tier was actually
Otherwise,
capable of
two
tearing his
martial
physical
artists that both
defenses.
cultivated
Even
fire
if
or
it was
water
just a
arts
bit,
wouldn't need to fight.
it was shocking
For
enough.
fighting would just be a waste
His
of time,
current
and
physique
strength
was something that could
Who
match
knew,
level
however,
was
was
very
precious metal
excited,
in toughness.
charging towards the
Even
river
if an
while
ordinary
shouting,
heaven-tier
"Bath
cultivator
time,
threw
bath
furious
time."
blows in his direction,
Ling Han
it would
pulled
be
her back
very
in a
difficult
rush
to injure
and
him
said,
unless a considerable
"Don't
number
act
of heaven-tier
recklessly.
cultivators joined
This
forces
lightning
and
isn't
refined
so
him like they would
simple.
level 9 precious
This
metal on
definitely
me. Then would
wasn't
it be
pure
possible that he
lightning."
would be refined
Ling
successfully?
Han could see the indistinct
Yet
flickers
now,
of
he was
vein-like
actually
patterns,
injured by
and
a
they weren't
demonic
even
beast
lightning,
formed out
but
of
fire
fog.
vein-like patterns.
This was really hard
How
to
could
believe.
that be? No wonder
In a
Shen
lightning
Er's
river,
master suffered a
flames
Dao
actually
injury.
appeared.
This place is really
Look
not
along
simple,
the river,
and is not
Ling
inferior
Han
to
said.
the Dark Devil Forest in
His
any
gaze
way.
turned towards the upper
Ling
reaches
Han
of the
said
lightning river,
seriously.
and although the purple
Then we
mist
had
above the
better
river faded a
retreat.
good deal,
There's meat to
allowing
eat
for more
outside and
visibility,
carrots to chew.
it was still limited.
So why
Purple
must we
mist
come here
still
to seek
pervaded
our
the
own
area.
discomfort? What was at
Although
the end of
Rabbit
the
felt a
lightning
strong
river?
curiosity as
Was
well,
it a mystical lightning
it obviously
treasure?
had a greater fear of
The
death.
rabbit rolled its eyes all
Ling
of a
Han
sudden,
laughed and
holding
said,
its stomach and
"We
crying
don't
out,
have to do that yet.
"Ayo, my stomach
I have
hurts.
teleportation
I ate too many
talismans,
carrots."
and even
Uncle
if we were
Rabbit's
trapped,
going to
we could
retreat
still
first.
escape.
Our
Ling
schemes
Han
are grand,
snickered
and said,
and these mystery
"Rabbit,
realms and danger
now you're
zones could
afraid of
all
death?
possibly be unstable
Sure,
factors.
go if you want.
So we have to
You
check
don't
them
need
one
to
by
bill
one.
for the carrots
At the
inside
very
the Black
least,
Tower in the
we
future.
have to know what dangers lie
Brat,
within.
you're too ungenerous.
For example,
the rabbit
old
put on
mine
airs
area
of
in the
strong
fire
righteousness.
There was no
Is
less than
Uncle
about
Rabbit
100
one to
living
be
dead of the
afraid of
shattering
death?
void tier in there.
Uncle Rabbit's
and in
just
the event
afraid
they came
that the
out,
three of us will
they would
fall
have a
into enemy
tremendous
hands
influence
here,
on their
and
attempt
then
to
no
split
one
open
can
the
save
skies.
us. So, Uncle Rabbit plans on guarding outside in case you guys are trapped so that Uncle Rabbit can get people for a rescue. Tisk, tisk. Your shamelessness I really must learn. I may use it in the future. Ling Han made fun of it. Hu Niu, on the other hand, took a bite at the rabbit. It was so painful that the rabbit screamed with pain and obediently went along with them. Since Uncle Rabbit has to work, hurry up and take out the dragon blood tyrant ginseng so that Uncle Rabbit can at least be a satisfied ghost. The rabbit extended its claws. Get lost. Ling Han waved his hand. Already gave you the 2 I owed you, still trying to take advantage of me here? No way. One lifetime as brothers. Who are we? The rabbit started to try to cotton up. They exchanged insults, but they didn't dare to be careless at all. Joking was only to relax the tense atmosphere. After all, it really was very strange here. Hu Niu was the only one who was truly relaxed. Humming while walking, she was absolutely simple-minded. The closer they got to the upper reaches of the river, the more astonishing the power of lightning was. Although the stream wasn't very turbulent, the waves that splattered in it were extremely shocking, definitely comparable to an attack of a shattering void tier elite that cultivated lightning mystic arts, and almost seemed to shake and crack even the skies. They didn't dare to get too close. Although the waves didn't actively hurt people, their might was plain to see, so who dared to underestimate them? The rabbit couldn't bear it, and vehemently requested to enter the Black Tower. Ling Han pondered for a moment, eventually storing both the rabbit and the gold-seeking rat into the Black Tower, and only he and Hu Niu were still on the outside. Hu Niu was indeed a freak, even Ling Han's skin cracked in such atmosphere, but the little girl was not affected at all. Ling Han's current physique reached the level of 9th tier rare metal, which could even bear the surging presence of the shattering void tier. It was obvious how freakish Hu Niu was. This also showed just how powerful shattering void tier elites were. It wasn't like Ling Han hadn't seen shattering void tier beings, but at a close distance, they actively retracted their own presence, and during battle, he was far away and had no particular awareness all along. But now he knew. Heaven tier elites in front of shattering void tier ones were actually so fragile. No wonder it took several hundred heaven tier elites to kill a shattering void tier 1, while deity transformation tier warriors didn't even qualify to appear in front of shattering void tier elites, being turned into pieces right away. Shattering void, this was an inherent improvement. Ling Han exclaimed inwardly while fully operating origin power to form a defense around him. What a pity, he cried out inwardly. If he still had the thunder battle armor, it might have great uses here. Hu Niu suddenly pointed ahead and said, Ling Han, look, there's a flower. Ling Han focused his gaze, but couldn't see anything. However, he knew that Hunyo wouldn't lie to him, so he walked forward for another stretch. As expected, a strange plant was by the river, roughly the half the height of a man, fully dark blue. Its leaves were like arrows, sparse only 7, and at the top blossomed a flower, which was shockingly formed by lightning, which changed continuously as if playing out the process from blossoming to wilting in an instant, repeating continuously. Even with Ling Han being the alchemy emperor in the previous life, knowing many medicinal ingredients well, he completely had no knowledge of this plant. Pretty, pretty. Hunyo let go of Ling Han's hand and dashed towards the flower. Ling Han originally wanted to stop her, but thought of how Hunyo had an instinctive sense of danger and walked here completely fine, so she might actually be unafraid of the lightning river. As expected, when Hunyo rushed to the side of the lightning river, the terrifying power of lightning didn't affect her at all. Smiling, she plucked the flower and skipped back and said, "Ling Han, help Nyo stick it on the head." Hunyo took the flower, but was surprised to find that the flower contained the pure power of lightning. In other words, it could be refined and absorbed. The world really was miraculous. Although the lightning river surged on ceaselessly and contained terrifyingly great danger, a shred of its power was forcibly extracted and grew into a flower of lightning. Cleansed by heaven and earth, it became extremely pure. Those who cultivated lightning arts could refine it, which had great benefits. This flower of lightning is remarkable and can improve the level of the body of lightning. You should refine it, Ling Han said with a smile. Hunyo shook her head and said, "Nyo feels that it'd be useless even if eaten. Ling Han, do you want it? Then Nyo will gift it to you." The little girl immediately jumped on Ling Han's back, trying to force this flower into Ling Han's mouth. Apparently, Hunyo's good intentions couldn't be refused, or else this little girl would talk about it all day. Ling Han could only consume the flower and activate the thunderclap 9th heaven, quickly dissolving the essence within. After half an hour, Ling Han stood up, and as his eyes opened, there were dazzling flickers of lightning. A flower of lightning obviously couldn't make his lightning body advance from novice to expert, but if there were several hundred such flowers, he definitely could attain the highest level in a single step. Were there any more flowers of lightning by the riverside? Just when they planned on giving up, the river of lightning and fire came to an end. They arrived at the bottom of the valley, and in front of them was a mountain wall, which the river of lightning and fire poured down from. There was a pitch-dark hole in the mountain wall, but where it led to was unknown. Here, the power of lightning and fire had unexpectedly fallen to a low point, and although it was still fierce, it was at least tolerable. Ling Han looked at that cave, feeling a shred of hesitation. The cave could hold the secret of the mountain valley, but it could also contain endless dangers. Should they continue onwards? He only hesitated a little, and then decided to advance bravely. He still had an instant teleportation talisman and the Black Tower, and even the power boost could temporarily grant him the shattering void tier battle prowess. What existence in the vast lands could still kill him instantly? Go! He held on Hunyo's hand and walked into the cave. If anything went wrong, he would immediately put Hunyo into the Black Tower. The black hole was dark, very dark to the point where Ling Han couldn't see anything even when he opened the Eye of Truth. He raised his hand and turned origin power into flames, but while he clearly felt the rising of the flames, he didn't see the glow of fire. It was like he was blind. However, when he turned and looked out the cave, he could clearly see the surging river of lightning and fire. Ling Han was shocked. What was going on with this cave? Earlier in the purple mist, only his sight and divine sense were affected but could at least be of use, but now? It was like he was truly blind, not only unable to see with his eyes, for even his divine sense couldn't sense anything. If he wasn't still holding on Hunyo's hand, he definitely wouldn't sense that there was another person beside him. Yes, he'd also lost his hearing. Strange, too strange. He was greatly alarmed within, but Ling Han still took another step and continued forward. The more that things were so, the more curious he became to know why. Small Tower. Do you know what this place is? He communicated with Black Tower with his divine sense. There's a shred of source power. Small Tower seemed a little serious. If you find it and let me devour it, I can repair by 0. 0.0000001%. T. Ling Han really wanted to curse. This place was so terrifying, with the surging river of lightning and fire, emitting the radiance of the shattering void tear. Thinking about it, one would know that its origin was remarkable. However, it could only repair Black Tower by 0.0000001%. Then, would he, in this life, be able to see Black Tower reappear in its divine light? Be careful. Small Tower reminded. If there was life here, then it would be too easy to kill you. No kidding. Ling Han couldn't be bothered to pay attention to it, and simply continued forward. It was a stretch of pure darkness. He couldn't see, hear, smell, and even his touch was also disappearing. He clearly grabbed onto Hunyo's hand, but he discovered the sensation was getting weaker and weaker as if he turned into a walking corpse. He felt pins and needles. What exactly was this damn place? It was too strange. Not knowing how long it had been, Ling Han finally couldn't feel anything. He didn't even know if he was still walking in this cave. Losing the 5 senses, what difference did he have with a living dead? He told himself to search, but didn't know where to go at all or even whether he'd touched a wall, because without touch, he wouldn't even know if he'd bumped into the mountain wall and was constantly wasting strength, walking in one place while pushing against it. Compelled by circumstances, he entered the Black Tower. It definitely wasn't formed naturally. The figure was extremely realistic, and every detail could be seen clearly. It had the look of an old man, and even if it was but a stone statue, its celestial-like charm could still be seen. So simple. Ling Han couldn't help but reveal a disappointed look. At the end of the source of 2 strange rivers and a cave that could make people lose their 5 senses was such a simple stone house. To ask for some treasures in exchange for a few questions, Senior really doesn't know how to do business. Not doing it. Ling Han refused at once, paused shortly and said, "However, I might as well listen. What treasures does Senior need?" Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire was irritated. A mere deity transformation tier junior dared to bargain with him? But unfortunately, he was the one who needed a favor, was he not? He snorted and said, "This lord needs these 4 things: True Dragon's Horn, Heavenly Phoenix Feather, Crimson Spirit Blood, Purple Valley Divine Metal." Pa! The corner of Ling Han's mouth twitched. Why don't you steal them? Which of those 4 things weren't the world's finest divine items? The key was that would the vast lands even have these divine items? Take True Dragon's Horn for example. Although Helian Xuanxue was a descendant of true dragons, she only had a shred of their bloodline and was infinitely far from true dragons. Even the Master of the 4 Seas, the royal Ao family, only had somewhat richer bloodline, which was still infinitely far away from a true dragon's. The 3 other things were all no inferior. Not to mention that Ling Han was just a small deity transformation tier warrior. Even shattering void tier elites had no way to obtain them. So first, he couldn't win, and second, he couldn't find it. Hee. This lord's not asking you to find it immediately. It couldn't possibly be found in this desolate place. However, when you go to the divine realm in the future, you'll have the chance to obtain it. This lord will wait for you, Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire went on. No kidding. Looks impossible to leave the way you look. Could you go for a stroll if not wait? Ling Han laughed mischievously and said, "Then what exceptional mystical power will Senior reward me with? If this mystical power was really kick-ass, then after he obtained those divine items, he really could consider doing this business. This lord will send you a sliver of divine sense, and let you see the mystical power's power," Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire said. Xiao, a small luminous spot flew out from the stone statue and stopped before Ling Han. Ling Han didn't dare to be careless. Carefully observing it for a while and making sure that it was indeed containing a memory, he finally extended his finger and pressed at it. Wang, inside his consciousness, a scene of battle immediately appeared. A man whose face couldn't be seen clearly was engaged in a fierce battle. His opponent was a sword user, whose sword lights were piercing and extremely terrifying. Their countenances couldn't be seen clearly because of a layer of mist around them, but Ling Han had a feeling that Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire was this person, and not the sword user.
Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire suddenly unleashed his might. 4 arms actually grew out of his body as if he'd turned into an octopus. The 6 arms activated mystic arts at the same time as if he'd turned into 3 people. Ling Han was astonished. Although he also grasped many mystical powers and mystic arts, at least, Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow and Earth Overturning Seal couldn't be executed simultaneously. However, if he could have 4 more arms, it would be completely different. 6 arms moved and activated 5 mystic arts at once, instantly suppressing that swordsman. How is it? This is immovable deity metal body mystical power. This is only the first tier, and cultivating further, the entire body can also enlarge, and the power of a swipe would be unstoppable. Thunder Fire Heavenly Emperor said with an enticing tone. This lord spent tremendous effort and almost died in a historic site to find this exceptional mystical power. Want to learn it? If you want to learn it, then bring those 4 divine items, and this lord will teach you. Learn it? He very much wanted to learn it. Even if it was only the first tier that transformed the body into one of 6 arms, it was still extremely practical. Being able to unleash many mystical powers simultaneously, its value was too great. Ling Han nodded and said, "Okay, I'll do my best to find those 4 divine items. But, Senior, my current strength is too weak. Can you impart some divine art first to increase my chances? Or else if I really die, it'll also be a loss for Senior, right?" It was rare to meet such a powerful existence, so the benefits obviously had to be taken. Chapter 756. Ice Dragon Ground Blast Formation. Henyi. Henyi. Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire was instantly annoyed, and said, "You haven't worked for this lord yet and you're already asking for benefits." He'd never seen such a shameless person. To come here wasn't an easy thing. "Senior, in this world, I can guarantee that there are no more than 5 people that can come here. If anything happens to me, Senior might have to wait another 80 to 100 years, Ling Han said with a smile. Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire didn't respond, and seemed to feel that what Ling Han said had some logic to it. After a while he said, "All right, this lord can teach you a mystic art that's slightly inferior. However, something passed down by this lord is obviously a unique art. Senior, please instruct me," Ling Han said respectfully. After all, he was receiving the benefits here. Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire thought, and said, "What do you want to learn?" This lord is a master of all sorts of mystic arts, saber arts, sword arts, rod arts and palm arts, and although some of these even this lord hasn't learned yet, the exceptional arts in my memory are enough to shock the world. Ling Han didn't know if he was boasting. He said, "I want to learn formations." In close combat, he had the Earth Overturning Seal, which was a mystical power, and at a medium range, he had the 3 styles of Black Origin, which was usable up to the Shattering Void tier. At a long distance, the Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow was also a mystical power with infinite power. Therefore, he had to make up for his lack of skill in formations. He couldn't master any profound formations so far. Firstly, there were pitifully little formation masters, and not many formations were passed down. Secondly, forces that grasped formations kept it all to themselves and were unwilling to teach outsiders formations above 6th tier. The key was that formations could perfectly match with any mystic art, and they just had to be laid out, no effort needed to be spent controlling them. "Humph, you're quite lucky," Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire said somewhat sourly. "This lord doesn't use formations, but I just happen to have had obtained an ancient formation once." "Lucky you." The stone statue flickered as a luminous ball floated out from it. Ling Han observed it momentarily, and then pressed his finger on it. Wang, a formation diagram instantly appeared in his consciousness. It changed continuously with a wonderful pattern, and some information surfaced that told him some of the basics about this formation. The formation was called Ice Dragon Ground Blast Formation, and after it was set up, it could gather heaven and earth spirit chi to form an ice dragon, which possessed the power to rival the Shattering Void tier. *T, I've been deceived. Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire should be an elite from the divine realm, and the mystic arts he grasped were obviously at divine level, like the Thunderclap 9th Heaven and similar mystical powers. However, this formation couldn't be called something at divine level. Although it could rival the Shattering Void tier, it was a 10th tier formation, which was far from what Ling Han had anticipated. Whatever.
Even if he was given a divine level formation, he wouldn't have the divine materials to create the formation's eye. Even now, he wouldn't be able to take out 10th tier treasured materials, and could only gather materials slowly. However, it also wouldn't take just a short amount of time for him to grasp 10th tier formation patterns, and when he grasped them, he probably would have already found enough materials. After all, if he were to unite the East, North, West and South regions, it would obviously be much less difficult to find 10th tier treasured materials. Perhaps he could ask Feng Peyun to strike down a star, and if he was lucky, he might be able to reap some 10th tier rare metals. Stupid. I have Heaven Transformation Bowl. What does it matter even if I don't have 10th tier rare metal? As long as there are massive amounts of materials, I can refine them step by step. Ling Han said inwardly. Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire sneered inwardly. Although he'd indeed imparted to him a genuine 10th tier formation, would a mere deity transformation tier brat have the ability to gather the materials? Even if he could, to carve formation patterns on 10th tier rare metal was also a massive undertaking. Dare mess with this lord? Then this lord would have you watch helplessly. However, he didn't know that Ling Han had Heaven Transformation Bowl that could create 10th tier rare metal in the Black Tower, such a heaven-defying thing. So long as the ingredients were there, how difficult would it be to carve the formation patterns? Instead, it was the comprehension of the formation that was difficult. Thank you very much, Senior, Ling Han said with a smile. Hee hee, the Emperor doesn't have hungry soldiers. Since you're working for this lord wouldn't treat you shabbily. Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire also said with a smile, thinking that Ling Han definitely suffered an unspeakable grievance. He paused shortly and went on. Leave this little girl with this lord first, and let this lord instruct her with utmost care. Someday, she'll definitely become a genius of a generation, and sweeping across the world would be nothing difficult. No, Stinky Stone. Lord Nyo is warning you, don't have any ideas about Nyo, or else Nyo'll eat you. Hu Nyo said ferociously. To dare say to take her as a disciple. Was he even fit to? Senior, she's still small, and whether she'll be a disciple can be discussed in the future. Anyway, for Senior, 100 years passes in a snap, Ling Han said with a smile. Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire wasn't pleased, but he needed Ling Han to work for him, and could only stomach it. As he saw it, after Ling Han found the 4 divine items for him, he would be able to extricate from the current predicament, and sorting out Ling Han then would obviously be as easy as a hand's turn. At that time, it would be hard for the little girl to escape his grasp, and she would have to become his disciple obediently. Senior, can you tell me about the divine realm? Ling Han asked again. This lord has already given you benefits, and you're not even doing things for this lord yet still caring about these meaningless things? Someday, when you advance into the divine realm, you'll obviously know. What's the difference between earlier and later? Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire said impatiently. Go, hurry up and leave. If the stone statue could move, he would definitely have waved his hand non-stop. Ling Han knew the stone statue was obviously not Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire's true body, and the rivers of lightning and fire flowed down the mountain walls, so could this person's true body be at the bottom of the valley? Unfortunately, whether he was trapped or hurt, he definitely wouldn't reveal his secrets to Ling Han. Then Senior, farewell, Ling Han said and cupped his hands, pulling on Hu Nyo and turning to leave. Hu Nyo was still somewhat annoyed, and turned around to make a face at the stone statue, then finally turned to leave. As before, she led Ling Han away. After the two of them disappeared, a divine sense was transmitted in the stone house. Strange. Who exactly is this little girl, being able to defy this lord's 5-sense blockade? Her strength is clearly low, but even if this lord's current strength is not 0.1% of what it was at peak stage, it should still be able to trap an existence at the sentiment severance tier. However, if it were so, they wouldn't be able to enter. This lord can't control his own power anymore. The 5 senses blockade can protect this lord, but it has also become a fetter for this lord. Fortunately, meeting this strange little girl, there's finally a ray of hope for this lord to be free. This brat had better not die. Soon, Ling Han walked out of the cave and his 5 senses returned, making him deeply moved. Although the road he walked by earlier wasn't long, it was like 1,000 or 10,000 years to him, and if it weren't for his resolute willpower, any other person would have already collapsed. On the vast lands, just how many more old monsters are hidden? He muttered, looking back. Chapter 757. Corpse 2. Henyi. Henyi. After summoning Zhu Xian'er, the rabbit, and the gold-seeking rat from the Black Tower, the party started to walk back. They still had a mission to defeat and convince North Region's large sects, and when the time came, Great Ling Empire's army could simply collect the territories. Moreover, the massive influential power of these large sects could arouse the small forces in the periphery to surrender and greatly speed up Great Ling Empire's expansion. The saying, "Capture the leader first to capture all his followers," reflected just that. It was an intellectual conclusion of the ancestors. On the way, Ling Han tried to understand the Ice Dragon Ground Blast Formation. It was a 10th tier formation, and theoretically speaking, it shouldn't be something that Ling Han could grasp now. However, Ling Han had constantly studied the formations on the Revere Life Sword earlier, and this killing formation was more kick-ass than the Ice Dragon Ground Blast Formation. He was quite the clever and intelligent man. In the previous life, he'd resolved quite a few 9th tier formations, and had considerable fundamentals. Now that he'd obtained the detailed explanation of a 10th tier formation, his improvement was obviously fast. On the other side, he was also collecting various rare metals. Buying along the way. He bought all the rare metals that could be bought. Don't doubt his financial capability. He was a tycoon with the Black Tower, and if he took out a Dragon Blood Tyrant ginseng, a large party of the spiritual infant tier would probably have to pay out all its resources for it. Of course, Ling Han wouldn't sell Dragon Blood Tyrant ginseng, but how much treasured medicine was inside the Black Tower? He refined some pills, and if there wasn't enough time, he'd simply sell the raw materials in exchange for wealth, which all turned into rare metals. Inside the Black Tower, Ling Han took out the Heaven Transformation Bowl and refined these rare metals. First tier turned into second tier turned into third tier turned into fourth tier. Spending huge amounts of raw materials, he definitely could turn it into a pile of 10th tier rare metals used to construct a 10th tier formation. Soon, the Shinra sect also chose to pay allegiance, then the Beast Emperor sect, and at last, the Blood Flame Valley was the only one left. After Ling Han spent a shocking amount of wealth, he finally refined enough 10th tier rare metal. Probably half of the entire North region's rare metals were swept up by him. This was something that even the Half Moon sect, the Winter Moon sect, and other such superforces didn't dare to imagine, but Ling Han did it. An Alchemy Emperor and the Black Tower, the combination of the two. Money. No big deal. Of course, without the Heaven Transformation Bowl, all would be naught. This treasure was truly nature-defying. Ling Han forged the 10th tier rare metals into 108 short swords. In reality, he wanted to make them normal in size, but there was too little rare metal and he could only opt for the second best option. The number 108 was the demand of the Ice Dragon Ground Blast Formation, which needed that many formations' eyes. Inside the Black Tower, it was too easy for Ling Han to refine tools, and the so-called 10th tier rare metals were no different from dough, which he could knead at will. The next step was the key had to carve the formation patterns on the swords. Ling Han still hadn't thoroughly grasped the Ice Dragon Ground Blast Formation, and if he forcibly copied it, then he would only draw out its shape without obtaining its essence. Formations needed to communicate with heaven and earth to attract spirit chi, or else it would be but a bare outline, so Ling Han could only wait till he truly grasped the formation's essence to lay out the large formation. He believed that it wouldn't take too long. Ling Han was very confident in himself. The party hastened towards the Blood Flame Valley. It was obviously not difficult to subdue a mere spiritual infant tier force, but hurrying on the journey was somewhat time-consuming. After all, North Region wasn't small, either. Since they were constantly on the way and had little time to rest and eat, Hunyo had enough, fervently requesting to stop for a rest. Ling Han thought that they would be able to reach the Blood Flame Valley tomorrow and a night's time wouldn't matter, so he agreed. There was obviously fine wine and dishes prepared. In the North Region, everyone was very relaxed. After all, they could declare themselves as kings or overlords as they were invincible beings here. With the bonfire raging, Zhu Xian'er specially played a song on the pipes and danced, agitating Ling Han's heart and mind as he watched, thinking that exceptional beauties were exceptional beauties after all, making him want to turn into a beast by the minute. Hunyo was unconvinced, and started to dance amusingly, shaking the ground with rumbles that scared off the nearby beasts. Ling Han laughed loudly and felt very happy. Under such a harmonious atmosphere, he even forgot about ruling the world and simply wanted to live on undisturbed. As for the important matters like splitting open the skies, other people could do it. Why should he carry the burden on his shoulders? Hong! At this moment, a frightening strong wind assaulted straight for Ling Han's back. The time of surprise attack was grasped extremely well. It was not only when Ling Han was eating, but also when he was the most relaxed, and the attack's destructive power was also extremely terrifying, reaching the level of medium-level heaven tier. Ling Han's body turned into lightning, avoiding the attack by a hair's breadth. No, he didn't completely avoid it. His left rib was still hit, the cloth on it torn apart, and a black mark shockingly appeared on his waist as if clawed out by 5 fingers. It was not only terrifyingly black, but it also emitted a faint odor and was extremely likely to be containing poisonous qi. Who is it? The others shouted angrily. Hunyo was more direct and charged out, diving into the underbrush. Pung, pung, pung. 2 figures came out fighting. One was obviously Hunyo, who was distinguished by her small figure. The other person was tall and sturdy, and wore a black robe and a black cloak on his head, looking as if his entire person could fuse into one with the darkness. This wasn't an illusion, or else with their divine sense, Ling Han and Hunyo definitely would not know that someone had gotten so close. Unless the other party was a Shattering Void tier elite. But, apparently, it wasn't one. Shattering Void tier elites wouldn't need to launch a surprise attack, and would just take them away with one move. Ling Han called Hunyo back and said, "Sir, you've been following us for quite a while, right?" 9 entire days, the person in black robe said in a calm tone, appearing composed. His voice was extremely low and deep, and even had an indescribable strangeness like the grating of metals. "Such patience," Ling Han said. This person had obviously long wanted to assassinate him, yet endured it silently, finding the best opportunity, and the result was that he finally got it and slightly injured Ling Han with one attack. "What are you called?" The person in the black robe removed the cloak covering his head and revealed a square face that appeared very young. But Ling Han had a strange feeling that the other party should be extremely old because the wrinkles on his arms were very deep. "I'm called Corpse 2, the person in the black robe said. "Corpse 2, what sort of a name was that?" "From the 1,000 Corpse sect?" Ling Han asked again. Corpse 2 chuckled and said, "It's not a good given name, and once it's said, people would guess so." "Then you can change it." Ling Han also laughed. "Forget it, I don't mind others knowing," Corpse 2 said, not caring at all. From the two's harmonious conversation, who would have thought that Corpse 2 had ruthlessly sneak attacked Ling Han and tried to kill him? If not, then why did 1,000 Corpse sect cower for so many years? Corpse 2 took his time and didn't seem like he was here to be an assassin. He said unhurriedly, "I know you're stalling for time, but I am as well. You've been poisoned by my corpse poison, which can't be expelled, and will only get worse." I said, "I have considerable respect for a dead person." Ling Han looked down and saw that the black wound was expanding as expected, almost turning his entire waist black. Zhu Xian'er immediately cried out. To be injured by people from the 1,000 Corpse sect, the result couldn't possibly be good. It was either death or becoming a corpse soldier. Ling Han nodded and said, "As expected of an old corpse 10,000 years old. My diamond body actually can't automatically dispel such corpse qi." He activated the indestructible heaven scroll, and wang. His entire body immediately flickered with golden light as if he turned into a divine and imposing god of war. Corpse 2 put both hands behind his back and appeared not to care at all, having no intention to stop him. He said indifferently, "You're right, I am indeed a 10,000-year-old corpse, at least this body is, and not just 10,000 years, but at least several tens of thousands of years." He suddenly seemed to become interested in talking, and said, "Do you know corpses are like trees and have corpse rings? There are at least 30,000 corpse rings on my body. Sorry, I don't have the time to count them all." If it were in terms of age, it probably boasted the highest seniority in the vast land 7 Ma Duobao, and the others that slept for 10 to 20,000 years fell short of it. Over 30,000 years,
My body was constantly in a land of absolute yin where yang was extinguished and the heaviness of the corpse chi formed was unimaginable. Or else, a new divine spirit couldn't have been produced, and I could have only become a corpse soldier. Ling Han's entire body was covered in golden light as he said, "Then why did you seek refuge with 1,000 corpse sect when you very well could roam the world freely? People have to have some dreams, and my dream is the same as 1,000 corpse sects, so we obviously share the same views. Besides," Corpse 2 cracked a smile, "my corpse body also needs corpse chi to improve in cultivation, and where else to join other than the 1,000 corpse sect?" The golden light faded as Ling Han shook his head, and said, "An old corpse of 10,000 years is impressive as expected. I can't dispel such corpse poison." It wasn't that the indestructible heaven scroll wasn't impressive, but that the old corpse was buried for over 30,000 years, and the corpse poison fermented for too long. Even shattering void tier elites that were infected with it might not be able to withstand it. Moreover, Ling Han's cultivation was also somewhat low. If it were equal with the opponent's, then the indestructible heaven scroll definitely would have space to show off. At this time, the corpse poison already climbed to Ling Han's chest. Corpse 2 was somewhat shocked, and said, "Your strength isn't bad, and the art you cultivate is even better, being able to control the spread of the corpse poison to reduce it to such a slow pace. If it were another deity transformation tier warrior, or even 1,000, they should have turned into corpse soldiers by now. Sigh, such a genius. I'm really somewhat reluctant to kill you. Although corpse soldiers are strong, they're without intelligence after all, and their strength would be limited." He sighed sorrowfully. "Since you've already said so, how can I disappoint you?" Ling Han smiled, and his figure flashed, and then flashed again, faster than the blink of an eye, but the corpse poison on his body dissipated completely. His skin clear and pure was as if a warm jade that emitted divine light and caught no dust. It couldn't be underestimated. He wrapped origin power around his hands and unleashed the earth overturning seal golden light filling the sky and, activating the Eye of Truth. His battle prowess increased some more, reaching Heaven Tier 2 stars. Chapter 760. White Bone Mallet. Humph, don't think that you can defy nature just because you grasped a shred of the power of laws. Corpse 2 sneered. He swung his right arm as a white bone mallet appeared in his hand. It was roughly 1 meter long and covered in gold-veined patterns, but with a close look, one could tell that there were a few shreds of veined patterns that turned black. Ling Han was inwardly alarmed, and hurriedly turned into lightning, retreating hastily. He frowned and said, "Damn you, you actually took out your own femur as a weapon. I have to give it to you." It was clearly a human thigh bone, its power extremely terrifying, and most likely belonged to Corpse 2 himself because finding a combination of physical cultivator and the shattering void tier was too hard. There were obviously pitifully few that could satisfy both conditions at the same time. Corpse 2 stood extremely loftily with the mallet in hand, and said, "Yes, it's refined from a femur that I extracted from my body in the previous life. Speaking of spirit tools, is there anything more handy than something refined from a part of one's own body?" It stood to reason, but why did it feel so terrifyingly creepy? Ling Han shook his head and said, "If you say so, I'm at a loss of words." "Sigh, don't you know how to chat? This really hurts my feelings." "Don't be garrulous." Corpse 2 swung the white bone mallet and charged over. The bone was at the 9th layer of the shattering void tier, branded full of this elite's martial intent, and if he were to be smacked once by it, then he'd definitely be done for. Even though Ling Han possessed a shred of the power of laws, he didn't dare to receive it head-on, and although Corpse 2 couldn't operate the power of laws, his bones themselves might contain the power of laws after all. He was once at the 9th layer of the shattering void tier, and such an elite was unfathomable. "When I completely refine this bone, I'll even be able to kill shattering void tier warriors," Corpse 2 said coldly. Ling Han looked at the black line on the white bone mallet which should be Corpse 2's progress. He now cultivated the path of a corpse, and the arts were obviously different, but it was the same body after all. The white bone mallet wouldn't go against him. When all the golden veined patterns turned black, Corpse 2 would have completely grasped the bone mallet and able to unleash power at the 9th layer of the shattering void tier. That would be terrifying. Ding! Ling Han struck with his sword and parried the bone mallet, and said, "Don't think too highly of yourself. You're not the only one in the world with treasures and good fortune. Of course, it was the Revere Life Sword. Wang. On the bone mallet, a veined pattern became active, and Revere Life Sword was as well. Instantly, shattering void tear presence vibrated, making the space unstable cracks instantly appeared within the air. This was a confrontation of the greatest level. Ling Han and Corpse 2 retreated at the same time. Both parties had a great weapon in their hands that was so powerful that it far surpassed their tears, so they obviously had worries. A sword that's aggregated formations? Corpse 2's discernment was truly brilliant. He stared at the Revere Life Sword for a while. Your luck is truly astonishing for all the treasures you've obtained. Ling Han flourished his long sword with a smile and said, It can't be helped, my amazing luck. Being able to ascend as king explains a tough natal horoscope. On top of this luck, Corpse 2's expression was stern. I can't let you remain alive. You say it like you're not here to kill me, Ling Han said in contempt. Come, let's fight for 300 rounds, I'm not afraid of you. Corpse 2 rushed forward. He was more confident because his physique was at the Shattering Void tier, and might not even need to fear an encounter with Shattering Void tier elites. Swinging his bone mallet, a hefty wind that swirled by could cause mountains to collapse and cut off great rivers. Ling Han stored Zhu Xian'er and the others into the Black Tower to avoid them being grazed by such attacks, or else the lot of them would definitely die. He could block the attacks because he had in his hand the Revere Life Sword, which also erupted with great power and blocked the White Bone Mallet's power of destruction. Now, what the two of them competed with was not their own strength, but the control of the treasured weapon in their hands. Hong, hong, hong. The two of them clashed fiercely, and the ground shook and mountains swayed. It was a battle of quasi-shattering void tier, and although the stars still couldn't be shaken down, the destructive power was still extremely terrifying. After fighting for half a day, their strength diminished heavily, and at this time, Ling Han's freakishness was fully displayed. He was the Alchemy Emperor. Medicine, 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 take it one after another couldn't stop it all. A few medicinal pills went down his stomach, and his origin power instantly rose sharply, almost instantly returning to its peak state. It wasn't just the effect of the spirit medicine, but also had to do with him eating too much tonic medicine ordinarily. The benefits couldn't be completely digested, and permeated his blood, flesh, and bones, and now they were unleashed with the aid of medicinal power, allowing him to instantly return to peak state, even physical force as well. He exercised his muscles and bones, which crackled loudly like thunderclap, showing the fineness of his current state. Corpse 2's expression changed involuntarily. There was a great shortcoming with cultivating corpse arts. The medicinal pills refined for martial artists were completely ineffective for him. Now Ling Han was at an optimal state, but Corpse 2's power was exhausted and his battle prowess dropped drastically. How was he going to continue? Of course, he didn't need to worry about being taken down by Ling Han. After all, his physique was at the Shattering Void tier, which allowed him to stand in a secure position naturally. However, after possessing such a great advantage, would he still have to run with his tail between his legs? Ling Han cracked a smile and said, Now how about it, you still have the confidence to kill me? Humph, like you can take care of me? Don't forget, I'm assassinating you. Although unsuccessful, but if I'm to leave, you can only watch your back as well. Corpse 2 Counteretta wanted to sway Ling Han's invincible confidence. Ling Han didn't care at all those years he'd lived in the previous life weren't for nothing. He said, There's a saying, a monk may run away, but the temple remains. I certainly can't detain you now, but when I reach the Shattering Void tier, it'll be the time of 1,000 corpse sects destruction. Remember these words and pass them on. If you don't want to die, hurry up and separate from the 1,000 corpse sect and stay as a recluse for the rest of your life. Corpse 2's expression changed again. This brat talks so big, but the treasured sword in his hand was truly strange, becoming stronger in face of a strong opponent. Even 1,000 corpse sect master, the 9th underworld king, might not be able to kill him. Sneak attack. Another sneak attack was needed not to give this brat the chance to unleash the treasured sword. I can't assassinate you, but it doesn't mean others can't, Corpse 2 said indifferently. Earlier, I said that there's still a corpse boss above me, and his battle prowess is a few times stronger than mine. Next time, perhaps he'll attack. I accept it, Ling Han said loftily. His cultivation was soaring, and when Corpse Boss appeared, he might already be at the peak stage of the deity transformation tier. It would be nothing difficult to rival a high-level heaven tier. Corpse 2 already completely recovered its calm, and said, "Don't be overconfident. Corpse Boss has constantly cultivated in the pond of the underworld, and when he comes into the world, perhaps he'll already be in the shattering void tier." Trying to sway his heart of martial arts. Ling Han snorted. So what of a shattering void tier? He still had one chance for Black Tower's power boost, and he could unleash the Black Tower at the worst. They'd see who could be more kick-ass. Then I'll be waiting. Chapter 761. The Problem of Prominence. Corpse 2 left. Ling Han didn't stop him. Corpse 2's physique was comparable to 10th tier rare metal, and he would need to strike it for a long time to split it open, but Corpse 2 wasn't a dead person, so would Corpse 2 let him attack as he pleased? He felt a sense of urgency arise. He'd assumed that with Purple Moon Empire's impact, the 5 great sects and the 1,000 Corpse sect would be restrained in the middle state, and wouldn't care about small places like the East, South, West, and North regions. Yet the 1,000 Corpse sect unexpectedly assaulted here first. Fortunately, they'd only sent a heaven tier elite. The unification had to be faster so that the world would be a king's territory, then wherever he fought would be his home turf, and he would be able to receive the blessing of the power of the nation. Moreover, the larger the territory and the more numerous the citizens, the stronger the blessing he would receive. Besides, Ling Han had to hurry up and grasp Ice Dragon Ground Blast Formation, a 10th tier formation, which would bring him the battle prowess which he most urgently needed at the moment. A trip to Bloodflame Valley and killing a few stubborn ones who wouldn't heed the persuasion. Ling Han also became merciless and definitely wouldn't care about the discontentment of a few people for the great cause of splitting open the skies. Were the lives of the people in the world more important, or was satisfying a few people's desire for power more important? As the Winter Moon sect and other large sects surrendered one after another, North region's unification also became smooth and orderly. Wherever the great army passed, white flags were raised. Heaven-grade alchemist and heaven-tier battle prowess, the two added together, were invincible. Ling Han embarked on a return trip. After a slight rest and reorganization, he marched westward to take down the West region first, then he'd seize the South region, and at last take down the East region to complete the unification of the periphery. The Middle States battle would have to be left to the Purple Moon Empire and Ma Duo Bao. The 8 kings were very powerful, but this generation's 5 great sects were also powerful, and the 8 kings might not be able to succeed. The Lunar King had also said that the 8 kings together weren't a match for Ma Duo Bao. Who knew how powerful the damned fatty really was? Hellion Sun Shui moved the capital to North Region's Cold Wind City. The place was chosen, on one hand, because of its location, just at the center of the North region, which made it convenient for dispatch, and on the other hand because Cold Wind City had the character Han in it. 1. Ling Han was now walking towards Cold Wind City, and after 7 days, the party returned to the Imperial City. Hellion Xuanxue indeed was skilled at ruling a country. In a short while, the Imperial City already appeared imposing, and had the prestige of a king. More important were the aspirations of the people. People were discussing Great Ling Empire's new policies and praising them unceasingly. Earnestly thinking for the people would obviously respond with sincerity. People were very simple. You let me live a good life, so I'd support you. Ling Han as a sovereign, not as a heaven-grade alchemist or a high-level martial artist, finally left an impression on the minds of the ordinary people. He was glad to see such change, and purposely slowed down his pace, walking slowly along the way. Damn it, you dare to contest over a girl with this young master. Do you know who this young master is? When they passed by a place, they suddenly heard a voice filled with arrogance. Why does it sound familiar? Ling Han stopped in his tracks. From the voice and the tone, he knew that it was a fop, but why did it sound so familiar? Could he be acquainted with such trash? Zhu Xian'er's delicate face blushed as she said, "It's my younger brother." "Oh right, Zhu Long Xian." Ling Han couldn't help but reveal a smile and said, "Then let's go in and have a look." He was Zhu Xian'er's relative, and since they encountered him, they might as well have a look. He looked up shortly, and shook his head. Spring full pavilion, a place for men to feel ecstasy.
Chapter 762. Kill a Chicken. With Qian Feng's shout, those soldiers all seemed to become hesitant. He was someone with a great background, so was it really good to seize him? If they seized him now, wouldn't he just be released later? Qian Wu Yong, His Majesty's old friend and the Empire's outstanding minister, could his brother be touched? To hell with Qian Wu Yong. Zhu Long Xian was even more arrogant. My sister is Zhu Xian heir, the future queen of Great Ling Empire. Seize this guy for this young master and lock him in the imperial prison for a few months. Hu Niu was instantly infuriated. She was Ling Han's queen. Ling Han didn't bat an eyelid. He quite wanted to see how these soldiers would handle a microcosm of Great Ling Empire. Two young masters, don't cause a disturbance here, it's bad influence. Follow us to the Imperial Guard headquarters. We still need to go through the motions after all, an officer said, sounding very courteous. Although the two people's identities weren't verified, it was the imperial capital. And how many people dared to cause a disturbance and recklessly give themselves an identity, especially an honorable identity? Their identities would definitely be checked and verified, and things obviously wouldn't end well for impersonators. Thus, the officer was very careful. Zhu Long Xian and Qian Feng, however, weren't willing to let the matter drop, and wanted the military official to seize the other person. Spoiled young men fighting over a woman's favor also had to abide by the rules. It would be the end whenever one had the upper hand, and they normally wouldn't put the other party to death. After all, if all the spoiled young men were dead, who would see their show of authority? Ling Han shook his head. The territory was expanding rapidly, but the entire country's caliber couldn't keep up. It was no wonder, as he only spoke of 2 articles, one of which was expansion, and the second was appease the citizens' hearts. He didn't say to rule the country by high standards. He stood up and said, "Seize them both, escort them to the East Gate, and flog them 100 times. Pa, who the hell are you to talk of beating us? Do you know who my brother is?" Qian Feng shouted harshly. He was truly furious. Even these soldiers treated him with respect, so who did he think he was? Brother-in-law. Zhu Long Xian shouted in a pleasant surprise. "Your Majesty." The soldiers all knelt down one after another. "Why, Your Majesty?" Chong Feng was struck dumb. This was Great Ling Empire's sovereign and the mightiest figure of North region nowadays, and he actually dared to snap at the other party? Beyond everything, Rain Country's families were nothing after coming out of the fallen Moon Gorge, and their glory now was all thanks to Ling Han. Has sure plucked up some courage. Ling Han waved his hand and said, "Drag them away for a flogging." "Yes, Your Majesty." Those soldiers instantly became as fierce as tigers and wolves, for it was the reigning emperor's decree. Brother-in-law, why beat me too? Sister. Zhu Long Xian saw Zhu Xian heir and shouted in a hurry, obviously hoping his sister could appeal for mercy in his stead. However, Zhu Xian heir only shook her head at him and didn't speak at all. Well, the 2 spoiled young men were both dragged away. How unfortunate for them to have bumped into the muzzle. However, if it weren't for the chance encounter here, he really wouldn't have known that Zhu Long Xian already came here. It was quite funny thinking about it. Zhu Long Xian really had foresight when he called him brother-in-law. Returning to the imperial palace, Ling Han immediately set about the problem of strengthening the law and jurisdiction. In reality, authority inevitably came with privileges, or why else would people revere authority? Ling Han didn't think to make every family clear like water. Instead, there had to be a bottom line that mustn't be broken. Fighting and quarreling over a woman were small things, which he didn't need to be so strict about, but coercing women into prostitution, dominating someone's wife, and seizing property. Such dirty dealings definitely needed to be eradicated. Punishing Zhu Long Xian and Qian Feng in public today, he made them an example to others. Just as he had conceived the thought, these 2 guys bumped right into him. Although the 2 of them were each whipped 100 times, Qian family's head entered the imperial palace and requested to meet at night, kneeling in penitence before Ling Han and pleading in a tearful voice as if an enormous sin had been committed. Ling Han's tone was slightly stern, and he warned him to properly control the people of his family, drawing a bottom line for him. If this bottom line was crossed, he wouldn't care about friendship, and whoever needed to be killed would be killed. The head of the Qian family obeyed in fear. He was only in the spiritual pedestal tier, terrified just standing in front of Ling Han, so why would he dare to infuriate Ling Han? Besides, Qian family was currently 100 times more imposing than back in the Rain Country, so why would he wish to be struck back into the original condition? The second day, Zhu Long Xian covered his butt and also went to see Ling Han. Earlier, since Zhu Xian'er left the imperial city with Ling Han, not many people believed him, although he kept saying he was Zhu Xian'er's younger brother. Of course, not many people did anything to him, for what if it were true? Thus, his days passed by neither good nor bad. Now that his brother-in-law finally returned, he was obviously going to be pettishly charming, and at best the title of some sort of king would be conferred to him. Then, he'd be awe-inspiring and beat anyone who was an eyesore. "Brother-in-law, I missed you so much," he shouted right when they met and dove in front of Ling Han, tightly hugging his legs. Ling Han, Uncle Rabbit didn't know you had such a grown son." Uncle Rabbit teased. "Be brother-in-law, are my eyes blurred, or is a rabbit talking?" Zhu Long Xian instantly forgot to fawn over Ling Han and stared blankly at the rabbit with surprise all over his face. What's so amazing about Uncle Rabbit talking? Back in the day, Uncle Rabbit was unmatched in the world with unparalleled divine might, and who wasn't convinced? The rabbit boasted. Zhu Long Xian didn't know better, still shocked by a rabbit that could talk, and he instantly held the rabbit in extreme reverence and began to lick its boots. Why, the rabbit really liked it and was very pleased, feeling that Zhu Long Xian looked more and more pleasing to the eye. In a mere 2 months' time, the North region was completely unified, and came under the jurisdiction of the Great Ling Empire. It was obviously because North region's martial arts level was too low. The strength of deity transformation tier could make a clean sweep, and with Ling Han's identity as a heaven-grade alchemist, the resistance disintegrated after the Half-Moon sect and the other 5 great forces surrendered. In the following 3 regions, the West region's martial arts level was the lowest, but there were also deity transformation tier elites keeping watch. East region and North region both had heaven tier elites, and wouldn't be easy to seize. After North region was unified, Ling Han wasn't in a rush to march westward, and instead began to manage the army, picking out martial artists above the spiritual ocean tier to develop a high-end battle power with the methods of the Purple Moon Empire. After all, the other 3 regions' martial arts level was high. Relying on normal soldiers would simply be a joke, for elites could kill a whole field of them just by waving a hand, and all of Great Ling Empire's property would have to be spent on paying compensation. Ling Han didn't lack high-level mystic art. She obviously could imitate the Purple Moon Empire, which were also the most enticing for martial artists. In the North region, spiritual ocean tier warriors could surely be called experts, and originally, these people disdained to join the army. But now, each one of them strived to enlist as if in fear that the mystic arts would be seized by others if they fell behind. Moreover, Ling Han also had the Black Tower to provide medicinal ingredients, and was even a heaven-grade alchemist. The Alchemist Society also served him, and adding medicinal pills as part of the rewards also had a positive effect. The circumstances were gratifying. On this day, Ling Han was in the royal court, discussing with all the ministers about the expedition to the West region, when an elite barged into the palace with a disdainful look. "Who's the one that can make decisions here?" the person said loftily. Chapter 763. Xianyu's Messenger. He was a very strange person. His figure was extremely tall and sturdy, and his facial features were plain with veined patterns that looked to be inborn, but this wasn't the strange part that had 2 small buns on his head, looking as if a fawn about to grow antlers. He had heaven-tier presence, and it was high level, even a being at the peak stage. "Fourth uncle, what's there to say to these lowly humans? Let's just seize them and be done with it." A youngster also walked in the imperial palace, wearing a multicolored battle suit, looking as if a peacock showing off its feathers. Helian Sun Shui moved closer to Ling Han, and whispered, "The older one is Xianyu Cheng and the smaller one is Xianyu Dongming. Don't provoke them. Just make them leave by going through the motions." Ling Han suddenly realized it was the sea race. How truly arrogant. Did they really take this place as their territory? It was no surprise thinking about it. The royal lineage of Xianyu alone had nearly 30 shattering void tier elites. And what sort of accumulation was this? How terrifying was their strength? In the eyes of the sea race, this was a remote and desolate place. But, Xianyu Dongming. Ling Han looked towards the peacock. Manha was Helian Xuanxue's fiancé. He'd heard Helian Xuanxue say that the Helian and Xianyu family were in the process of discussing an alliance to resist against the Wunren royal family together. Among the North Sea's 3 royal families, Wunren was the strongest, strong to the point of being able to annihilate either of the 2 other families with its own power. Thus, the 2 families could only resist it by establishing alliance. But how could it be guaranteed that everyone was with one heart and mind and wouldn't stab each other in the back? Union by marriage. Helian Sun Shui was the most outstanding girl in the younger generation of the Helian family, and Xianyu Dongming was the most outstanding male in the Xianyu family, though slightly inferior to Helian Xuanxue, but not by much. Helian Xuanxue was too outstanding. However, when Helian Sun Shui discovered about settling accounts, she had the plan of obtaining the Vial of Curses, and could only conduct it in secret, or else, once she was charged with murdering a royal family member, even the imperial family would be furious. She'd never expected to be struck by a giant silver spider and lose all her memories. From then on to follow Ling Han and recover her memory after having sex once. She returned to the North Sea, but discovered that she was pregnant, and then no longer had the intention of marrying Xianyu Dongming, and hid to give birth to the child. However, the fire couldn't be stopped. The news leaked, so she obviously could only run away with her son. Now, the sea race had finally found her. Ling Han withdrew his gaze, got up from the throne, walked over in large strides, and said, "I can make decisions. What is your business here?" He wasn't afraid that the 2 people from the Xianyu family would recognize Helian Sun Shui, because Helian Sun Shui not only changed her appearance with the disguise pill, but also cultivated his ancient art, which could change her aura. Now, she was only a flower blossom tier warrior, and wouldn't be associated with the North Sea's pearl. Xianyu Cheng's gaze swept by, overflowing with terrifying coercive might that could make the skin of even deity transformation tier elites break. He purposefully put on a show of strength for Ling Han, but to his disappointment and surprise, Ling Han seemed perfectly fine, and wasn't the least bit affected. This human was somewhat strange. But that was all there was. Xianyu family's roots were very deep, and even against the 5 large ancient sects, they could keep their backs straight and even berate them from a commanding position. So what of a mere deity transformation tier junior? He spoke. "This lord wants you to find someone." "Oh, whom?" Ling Han said indifferently, although he already knew it was Helian Sun Shui. Xianyu Cheng raised his hand and threw out a scroll painting and said, "Pour all the power into finding the girl on the painting for this lord. Find her, and this lord will have rewards for you, but if not, you guys can prepare for your own funeral." Fourth uncle, the environment here isn't bad. Xianyu Dongming sat on the throne casually. "Let's wait here." "Okay." Xianyu Cheng considered it slightly and nodded. Although North Region was far from being as large as the North Sea, it was too much to search for 2 people. They found nothing running this way and that, so it'd be better to wait for news here. Besides, though he was the senior one, Xianyu Dongming's status in the family was above his. The child had very pure ancestral blood, which just hadn't completely awakened. His future accomplishments were limitless, and he received key training of several shattering void tier elites in the family. So, as long as it wasn't excessive, he would let Xianyu Dongming have his way. "The palace maid over there. Bring over the thing you're carrying." Xianyu Dongming beckoned at the 2 palace maids that stood tall and majestically on the 2 sides. These palace maids were holding all sorts of fruits, colorful and sweet-smelling, that worked up his appetite. Those palace maids all looked towards Ling Han, while a shred of killing intent arose within Ling Han's eyes, but after seeing Helian Sun Shui, he forcibly held down the killing intent and nodded, signaling the palace maids to do as told. The hundreds of ministers all felt they'd been humiliated, for here was Great Ling Empire's power center, which represented the face of Great Ling Empire, but now an outsider sat on the imperial throne and snapped at will. But what could be done? The opponent was too powerful, and even Yuan Cheng he couldn't endure that presence, so who could rival him? To provoke hostility would be only to invite their own destruction, so the choice was simple. Xianyu Dongming casually took some fruits to eat, relaxed his countenance, and said, "Fourth uncle, these things are really delicious. You try some too." He threw some fruits over to Xianyu Cheng. Xianyu Cheng was old and prudent, and obviously wouldn't disregard his appearance like Xianyu Dongming, but the latter had good intentions. It would be inexcusable if he didn't accept it, so he took a grape and put it into his mouth. Instantly, He also revealed an astonished expression, too fresh and too delicious. Moreover, within the grapes was a shred of spirit power, which could be directly absorbed, and though it was pitifully little, it was definitely something good for low-level martial artists. If Xianyu family could plant these grapes in large amounts, then in 20 to 30 years, their family's strength as a whole could definitely increase by a level. Xianyu Dongming was more and more unbridled as he stared at a few palace maids and couldn't help but reveal a lecherous smile. He said, "I didn't expect human girls to look good too. Hey, that one in charge in the future, prepare a large box of these fruits for me, and these palace maids. Just 10. Although the human race is lowly, playing's no harm. 10's enough, can't manage more than 10 anyway." Ling Han revealed a smile, but it was threateningly cold. "You enter my territory, take my position, and want me to gift you women and money." "What, you're not convinced?" Xianyu Dongming sneered. What a joke. He was a dignified genius of the Xianyu family, and his willing to sit here was already thinking highly of Ling Han, or else, with the dirtiness and inferiority of the human race, he would avoid coming here. "I plan on living here for a month. In a month's time, you'll find me the girl on the scroll painting, and if you find her, I'll leave, but don't forget the fruits and palace maids every month. If you can't find her, you can go die," he said. The smile on Ling Han's face was brighter and brighter as he said, "I've tolerated you all this time, but you had to seek your own death. Then I'll have to kill you. The imperial prestige can't be challenged. Keep that in mind in the next life." Chapter 764. The imperial prestige cannot be challenged. Xianyu Cheng only felt it funny that a human ant in the deity transformation tier spoke threats in front of him, truly an enormous joke. To be honest, Xianyu Dongming had indeed gone too far, but so what? Should he give face to a mere lowly human? It was just like you picking out a chicken for slaughter. Would you need to look at the expressions of the other chickens inside the chicken pen? Doing as he pleased without scruples. It seemed this human still didn't know the power of his, and even began to make a show of authority. "Human, are you tired of living?" He spread his own aura, which seethed inside the imperial palace like boiling water, making everyone groan and find it difficult to bear as their body and spirit were about to break into pieces. Here, there wasn't a lack of kings among martial artists who could withstand an elite's pressure, but now it was different. Xianyu Cheng deliberately did so with origin power attached to the aura. It was no longer the problem of aura, but that of real oppressive power. Who could withstand it? Ling Han, however, was unafraid and said coldly, "I respect you guys as guests, but you guys instead reverse the roles and direct me to do this and that as you please. Not just that, you even threaten me and threaten my courtiers. Do you guys know who I am? I am Great Ling Empire's emperor, and the imperial prestige and authority can't be challenged. Today, I'll take you guys as sacrifices for divine blessing, then march westward," he said loudly, stirring the officials of all ranks who fell all over the ground. "This is our emperor. Long live the emperor." All the officials barely opened their mouths and bowed. "Long live the emperor." The soldiers in the distant heard and also followed suit, bowing down. This was like a ripple that spread throughout the imperial city. Even the common people knelt down, shouting loudly, "Long live the emperor." The decisions Ling Han made these days benefited the country and the people, winning the hearts of and minds of the people, and now the people reciprocated with their hearts. Passionate cries spread throughout the entire imperial city as the people's minds aligned. The power of the nation was available to use, and Ling Han's body immediately glowed with golden light. It was a voluntary blessing of the power of the nation. Xianyu Cheng couldn't help but sneer and said threateningly, "How dare you defy the heavenly law, establishing a nation and aggregating fortune?" Being an emperor was the dream of many people, which wasn't strange, but establishing a country and then aggregating the power of the nation, this was something that many great forces definitely couldn't allow. In reality, many large forces didn't know why it wasn't allowed. It was the rule passed down from their distant ancestors generation after generation, death to violators. It had to be said that the 5 ancient sects' brainwashing was quite successful, and so was the sea races. "Fourth uncle, cut the crap with him, just kill him. How about I be the emperor for a few days as entertainment?" Xianyu Dongming said while eating fruits, spitting the peels and pits randomly. Xianyu Cheng thought about it but said, "I'll spare his life for the time being.
finding that B*TCH is more important. Speaking of that B*TCH, Shenyu Dongming was instantly worked up, his eyes even turning red. He was Shenyu family's genius, spoiled from the moment of his birth, getting whatever he wanted. However, Hellion Sun Shui made him a cuckold, which was an equivalent of giving him a loud and clear slap, making him the joke of the North Sea. All of a sudden, even the royal families of the other sea regions heard of it. If Hellion Sun Shui wasn't executed in public, would he still have the face to see other people in the future? Hellion Sun Shui hinted at Ling Han with her eyes, meaning to have him endure silently for a little longer. The North region's royal family was too powerful, possessing over 30 shattering void tier elites, and not to mention dispatching them all. Even if one came, how would Great Ling Empire resist? With their lives. Ling Han, however, laughed loudly and said, "To some people, one can't yield. The more you're bearing it silently, the more they think that we're easy to bully. These two people. Today, I'm definitely killing them." Xiao, he charged towards Shenyu Dongming. "What a joke, trying to commit murder in front of me?" Shenyu Cheng sneered. He was a high-level heaven tier elite, an almost invincible being beneath the shattering void tier. He immediately crossed Ling Han's path to block him. However, at this moment, a flash of lightning flickered by Ling Han's body, and with a Z, his figure suddenly accelerated and instantly disappeared before Shenyu Cheng. "So fast!" Shenyu Cheng cried out inwardly. How could he be so fast? Was this guy really in the deity transformation tier? T. He immediately said inwardly, turning abruptly, and his expression instantly changed drastically. As expected, Shenyu Dongming fell into Ling Han's hands. It was too shocking. Shenyu Dongming was at peak stage of the deity transformation tier, higher in tier than Ling Han, so how was he restrained with one move? This human was too out of the ordinary. "Bastard, let go of me!" Shenyu Dongming shouted as he struggled. Earlier he hadn't been on guard at all. First, he'd never thought that Ling's strength would be so impressive, and second, he'd never expected that Ling Han could charge over with Shenyu Cheng blocking his way. In a hurry, he only had time to raise his hand, and ended up being restrained by Ling Han. However, he wasn't afraid, for he was Shenyu family's genius, the jewel on the imperial crown. Did a mere lowly human dare hurt him? Wasn't he afraid of the sea race's elites being dispatched, trampling over this small imperial court? He was furious, and once he regained freedom, he would definitely step on Ling Han's head fiercely and make Ling Han suffer his fill of humiliation. Then he'd cut off Ling Han's head to use as a wine bowl in the future. "Let him go now!" Shenyu Cheng also shouted. He was afraid that Ling Han would do something crazy under a violent rage. 10,000 Ling Hans together couldn't compare to a single finger on Shenyu Dongming. There was no way to even think of mutual destruction. Ling Han sneered, and origin power burst forth within his right hand and invaded Shenyu Dongming's body. He said, "Let go of your sister. This emperor has already said, those who challenge my imperial prestige, no matter who, will all be killed." "Ah!" Shenyu Dongming screamed, for he discovered his own martial intent being obliterated. Ling Han was simply going to cripple him. However, it was too terrifying. Ling Han's cultivation was clearly inferior to his, so why could Ling Han obliterate his martial intent? It was the crushing suppression of someone one tier higher. "Die!" Shenyu Cheng's eyes were red. If he let Ling Han cripple Shenyu Dongming, he'd also be punished when he returned to the family, and would be better off dead. He had to intervene, for Shenyu Dongming was Shenyu family's most outstanding descendant. Ling Han shook his right hand, and ka, the bones in Shenyu Dongming's entire body crackled, all being shattered into pieces. Shenyu Dongming became a disabled person. He offhandedly threw Shenyu Dongming to the side and greeted Shenyu Cheng. Damn it! Damn it! Shenyu Cheng's killing intent seethed. Although Shenyu Dongming hadn't died, his entire body was soft like dough, all the bones apparently broken, and the martial intent on his body nearly disappeared. It would be a great injury even if cured with spirit medicine, and he'd even lose all potential and die as a mediocre person. He couldn't shirk the responsibility, and thinking about the punishment he might suffer, he was obviously driven mad. Kill this human. Kill, kill, kill. Ling Han and Shenyu Cheng exchanged blows head-on. Pang, the imperial palace was immediately blown up,
But Ling Han also brought Xian Yu Cheng into the sky. The opponent could attack without scruples here, but Ling Han couldn't. His physique was too tough, and risking being struck head-on a few times, he still remained unmoved. Damned human! Not only will I have you die today, the entire empire will be buried with you. Xian Yu Cheng said balefully. Chapter 765. True Dragon's Shadow. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "The ones to die here today will only be the two of you." Bull**T. Xian Yu Cheng spread his arms and snatched at Ling Han, but his expression turned stern. This human was surprisingly fast, and his physique was formidable. He really wasn't easy to deal with. Fighting in the sky, Ling Han obviously had no more misgivings and furiously attacked his opponent. Pang, pang, pang. The two battled fiercely. They fought in close-quarters combat, each punch to the flesh, completely unlike supreme elites, and instead were like local ruffians, throwing punches and kicks completely without order. However, after fighting like this for a while, they both retreated without prior agreement. There would be no end fighting like this. Ling Han's physique reached the level of 9th-tier rare metal, and Xian Yu Cheng wasn't weak, either, being able to take Ling Han's blows head-on without damage to his body. Ancient true dragons naturally had formidable physiques. Although Xian Yu Cheng had pathetically little ancestral blood, as long as there was a shred of true dragon's blood circulating inside his body, it was enough to increase his physique to a shocking level, equivalent to rare gold of his tier. At least, he would be a first-rate physical cultivator before ancestral blood reached its extreme. This was the Sea race royal family's advantage, being a cut above others inherently. No wonder the Sea race would be so proud it was a racial strength. Ling Han touched his hands and golden light instantly flowed everywhere. He'd activated the Earth Overturning Seal and the Eye of Truth at the same time. He didn't believe that every part of the opponent's body was cultivated to a flawless degree. There had to be a weak part. Xian Yu Cheng also shook both hands, and strangely, his hands turned into dragon claws, flickering with cyan luster. Dragon claws. His bloodline was limited, and could only transform two hands into dragon form, which could only be maintained for a certain amount of time. But dragon claws were definitely the world's most powerful weapon. Breaking metal and shattering jade would be nothing difficult. Both parties increased their battle prowess, and after standing off shortly, they charged towards each other. Hong, hong, hong. The Earth Overturning Seal clashed firmly against the dragon claws, and with each impact, golden and cyan-colored brilliance would explode in the sky, clearly visible to the entire imperial city. Ha 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 ha, human, your physique is indeed formidable and your battle prowess is strong too. But your greatest weakness is your tierie only in the deity transformation tier after all. Xian Yu Cheng sneered. Dragon claws were enough to resist the Earth Overturning Seal, even having a slight edge, and his power completely crushed Ling Han's. Is that so? Ling Han took a deep breath, and operated the power of the nation, and blessed with fortune, his power instantly skyrocketed. Arts and skills, power of the nation, medicinal pills, and so on could increase battle prowess. Battle prowess could come down to many factors, similar to how one person would definitely have different battle prowess if he were to fight with a wooden sword or a metal sword. The power of the nation's increase was power. Now, Great Ling Empire already unified the North region, enough to increase Ling Han's battle prowess by 5 stars, and in reality, it was the boost of fortune that forcibly increased his power by 5 stars. It could be considered the same as Black Tower's power boost, just not that powerful. With the power increase of 5 stars, Ling Han still couldn't rival high-level heaven tier, but wasn't far from it. He used the Demon Fairy Step, and with the addition of the Thunderclap 9th Heaven, his figure wavered like a ghost as he searched for and struck wildly Xian Yu Cheng's weak points. Xian Yu Cheng only possessed true dragon's bloodline, and wasn't a true dragon. Besides, true dragons definitely had weaknesses too. He was struck violently by Ling Han, and instantly began to scream. Ling Han found his weaknesses and beat him painfully, and blood burst from all over his body. You've infuriated me. Xian Yu Cheng glowered. He was from the royal family in the North Sea and a true dragon's descendant. How honorable and respected was he? But now, he was actually beaten viciously by an insignificant human, which he couldn't accept.
He roared loudly and knelt halfway down as the muscles all over his body pulsed and the two small buns on top of his head flickered with faint light.
Ling Han sneered and said, "Are you constipated?" Xian Yucheng ignored his scathing remark and held his breath. Wang, a true dragon's shadow formed behind his back, over 3,000 meters long, coiling upright. It was an azure dragon, vivid and lifelike, and even the dragon's beard could be seen moving under the airflow. Ling Han didn't dare to be careless, and directly unleashed the Revere Life Sword. "Lord Ancestral Dragon, please assist me in annihilating this human." Xian Yucheng roared furiously, and charged towards Ling Han while the true dragon's shadow in the sky also moved and threw itself at Ling Han.
There was a shred of the might of the shattering void tear.
Should he use Black Tower's power boost? Ling Han immediately shook his head. It would truly be a waste to use Black Tower's power boost on a high-level heaven tier elite. If Xian Yucheng were to know his thoughts, he'd definitely be infuriated. High-level heaven tier elite? How many were there in the world? It was just a shred of shattering void tier power, he'd receive it head-on. He struck out with his sword, executing the 10,000 techniques return to one with his right hand while unleashing the earth overturning seal with his left hand and simultaneously activating the demonic pattern, attaching a shred of the power of laws onto it.
Reckless!
Xian Yucheng sneered. He'd summoned ancestral blood, which could only be used by royalty after reaching the heaven tier. Due to the different intensity of ancestral blood, the true dragon's shadow's power would be different. The strongest could even reach the 9th layer of the shattering void tier. Unfortunately, with the realm suppression, it was impossible to break through to the divine level. But no matter what, it was the sea race's grand move kick us to the extreme. Shattering void tier, the world's strongest. Hong! Ling Han exchanged blows with Xian Yucheng, and a terrifyingly strong chi fluctuated as dazzling light burst forth, exploding in the sky like a small sun, which temporarily blinded the people below except for a field of brightness. Nothing else could be seen. The brilliance passed. Ling Han was sent flying at least 3,000 meters away with blood all over his body, with his arms bent at a strange angle and his chest was caved in apparently. The bones in his arms and ribs were all broken. The true dragon's shadow was formidable as expected, heavily injuring Ling Han in one blow. Had a physique of 9th tier rare metal.
Ha ha ha, you overestimate yourself.
Xian Yucheng charged over. He was going to behead this terrifying human. Yet,
it isn't much,
Ling Han said indifferently, and opened up his arms as his injuries recovered at a visible speed. His chest also began to rise up. The broken bones almost instantly healed. Diamond body. It was indestructible Heaven Scrolls mystic art. Strengthening the physique was only one side of it, and it also had supreme recovery power, which was the most terrifying part. You injured me heavily 10,000 times, and I recovered 10,000 times. How about it?
What?
Xian Yucheng immediately stuttered. Was this human a monster, immediately recovering from such a heavy attack? Are you really a human? You sure you're not from the Silver Moon race, famous for powerful recovery? No, even the Silver Moon race's recovery abilities shouldn't be so kick-ass. Ling Han raised his sword and said, "The battle's just begun." Xian Yucheng calmed down and said, "To instantly recover from such heavy injuries, you definitely paid an extremely great price, and definitely can't use it many times." He launched an attack again, trying to break Ling Han's limit. Chapter 766. This Emperor will kill a dragon. Xian Yucheng assumed that such terrifying recovery power definitely needed an enormous price to pay, or else it would be too unreasonable. But even with Ling Han's intelligence and wisdom, he'd still spent 10,000 years to comprehend indestructible Heaven Scrolls first layer and attain the diamond body. If it didn't have freakish recovery power, how could it be worth of requiring such a long comprehension time? How could it be worthy of Black Tower's level? He'd have no face to go see others. I said that I'll kill you both today, so I definitely will. Ling Han deployed the earth overturning seal and the 10,000 techniques returned to one, finding weak points with the Eye of Truth and adding power with the Thunderclap 9th Heaven. He already used 3 mystical powers, and though the 10,000 techniques returned to one wasn't one, its power was definitely no inferior to a mystical power before the divine level. A 3-meter-long sword ray swept out, slashing towards Xian Yucheng. Die! 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 Xian Yu Cheng came crashing down with the true dragon's shadow. Pang! With another great impact, Ling Han was sent flying again, still 3,000 meters away and with shattered bones in multiple areas. However, he revealed a smile and said, "As expected, although you summoned the true dragon's shadow, it's not a real true dragon after all, with only a shred of martial intent, or else it wouldn't be so easy for me to recover. Besides, turning my body into lightning can dampen part of the impact. Theoretically speaking, after turning into lightning, all physical attacks could be ignored because he would be lightning that couldn't be harmed by physical force. However, it would be different if martial intent was attached to the attack, and kings that form chi would have the qualifications to harm the body of lightning. Thus, even if the true dragon's shadow only had a shred of martial intent, it could still pose a threat to Ling Han's body of lightning. But in addition to the defense of the diamond body, it wasn't enough to kill Ling Han instantly. Being unable to kill him instantly meant that diamond body's recovery ability could come into effect. Ling Han smiled and said, "This is your ultimate move? Nothing impressive." Xian Yu Cheng's face twitched, and he intended to retort, but didn't know what to say. True Dragon's shadow possessed a shred of the shattering void tear's might, and 10,000 Ling Han should be swept away by it theoretically, but now? Although Ling Han was heavily injured after taking each blow, his damned recovery was too fast. It wasn't that the true dragon's shadow wasn't impressive, it was the recovery power that was too freakish. "I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe that you can keep recovering." Xian Yu Cheng let out a battle cry just like a dragon's cry, and attacked Ling Han violently with the true dragon's shadow. Ling Han had no intention of evading and simply attacked head-on. The opponent was only in the heaven tier and Ling Han's attacks were enough to pose a threat to the opponent. Moreover, the fiercer his counterattacks were, the earlier the opponent's ultimate move would end. The two firmly believed that the other's ultimate move couldn't continue forever, and launched their strongest attacks one after another, trying to make the other reach the limit first. However, Xian Yu Cheng really used his ultimate move, but Ling Han still had some things left up his sleeve. At least, he still had Black Tower's power boost which hadn't been used, or else the battle prowess of the shattering void tier was enough to crush the opponent. Fight, 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 a state of chaos and darkness. Xian Yu Cheng's expression was becoming more and more unsightly. How come Ling Han's recovery power wasn't reduced the least bit? Impossible, even if Ling Han took a treasured medicine, the effects would definitely be worse and worse each time. Even worldly treasures had limits. What exactly was going on? Contrarily, his ancestral blood had already been completely burned and would soon dry out. At least several years of recovery would be needed for it to be used again. Ling Han saw the changes in his expression and said with a smile, "Old man at wit's end?" Bullshasterisk T, a mere human, an ant. "You think I can't kill you?" Xian Yu Cheng obviously wouldn't admit defeat, feigning contempt instead. He swung the dragon claws, but was already exhausted, so their power dropped drastically. Ling Han's battle prowess, however, wasn't impaired. After he attained the diamond body, his recovery power reached a maddening degree. He still had 10 drops of the indestructible true fluid unused. If Xian Yu Cheng were to know it, he would probably lose all hope. Fight, fight, fight. Xian Yu Cheng's battle prowess started to falter, and although Ling Han also greatly exhausted his origin power and physical power, don't forget that he was still an alchemy emperor who could casually take all sorts of medicinal pills, so his condition was definitely better than Xian Yu Cheng's. Xian Yu Cheng finally beat a retreat. If he kept on fighting, he really might be killed here as well. In the sky, the true dragon's shadow behind him suddenly flickered rapidly a few times and disappeared. His ancestral blood had been completely used, and time was necessary for it to recover. "Humph, I'll let you live for now. Next time, when our family comes, it'll be your day of doom." Xian Yu Cheng threw down a few words to maintain appearances and was about to take to his heels. "Fourth uncle." Xian Yu Dongming, however, was greatly shocked. "You're damn just going to leave me here?" This human was so ruthless. Would he want to eat stewed dragon meat? Ling Han sneered and said, "I've already said that you'd die here today. Where do you think you're going?" He shifted his steps to intercept the other party. With the blessing of the thunderclap ninth heaven, his speed was even faster than Xian Yu Cheng's. Being faster by a little was enough. Xian Yucheng discovered embarrassingly that he actually couldn't get away. His expression turned harsh. You won't let me go, then I'll fight you to the death. Ling Han brandished and struck with his sword. It was the Revere Life Sword, which was carved with an exceptional killing formation, and if one really were to be struck, even a 9th-tier rare metal physique would still be wounded. Xian Yucheng didn't dare to fight desperately against the Revere Life Sword. As his fists moved, powerful winds were unleashed, which was still extremely terrifying and full of destructive power. Ling Han just trapped Xian Yucheng, striking left and right with his sword to exhaust Xian Yucheng's power. Xian Yucheng was furious and shocked. In terms of battle prowess, Ling Han definitely wasn't his opponent, with at least a gap of 5 stars. However, Ling Han was superior with the extreme speed of movement and having terrifying recovery power, which made him unable to leave and unable to exhaust Ling Han. Could it be that he really would be reduced to a prisoner? Xian Yucheng mustered up courage. He was from North Sea's royal family, and if he were to seized by humans, would he still have face to see other people in the future? Until this moment, he'd never believed that Ling Han would dare to kill him and Xian Yu Dongming. North Sea's royal family was too powerful to the point where sending any single elite of the Shattering Void tier was enough to kill everything here completely, so Ling Han wouldn't dare to murder them. However, his battle prowess was getting weaker and weaker, and after 3 more days of fighting, he finally exhausted his power and was seized by Ling Han. He truly wasn't resigned to this defeat. Xian Yucheng clenched his teeth. If it weren't for this guy's terrifying recovery power, he would have killed him several hundred times, but now he was a captive, so how could he be resigned to this defeat? Escort him to the East Gate. This emperor will kill them personally. Ling Han said loudly, his voice bright and clear, ringing throughout the entire imperial city. Long live the emperor! The subjects were all frantic as all of them personally witnessed that His Majesty's enemy turned into a true dragon. His Majesty could kill dragons, and what did this represent? Great Ling Empire was invincible. You dare! Xian Yucheng was really scared now. This human really dared to kill him. What's there not to dare? Ling Han sneered and waved his hand, having people escort Xian Yucheng and Xian Yu Dongming to the East Gate. Chapter 767. Your power of nation is wrong. Ling Han, you'd better think clearly. Do you really want to kill them? Helian Sun Shui approached him with a worried look on her face. Ling Han glanced at her and said, "The sea race is at the door. It can't be avoided in the end, so what if I tolerated them this time? We'll still meet on the battlefield. If that's so, why tolerate them? Besides, they already walked all over us and acted atrociously." Helian Sun Shui shook her head and said, "But our strength is too weak after all, and a long time is needed for growth." Ling Han shook his head and said, "Didn't you hear them talk? If you couldn't be found in a month, they'd kill all the people in the imperial city. Then tell me, when the time comes, should I hand you over or not? What a joke, coming to my territory to tell me to give up someone. Don't they know that I'm in charge on my territory?" Helian Sun Shui was speechless, and after pausing momentarily said, "Next time, the Xianyu family will definitely send a shattering void tier elite over. What do we do then?" "Serve it cold one," Ling Han said with a smile. He truly was unafraid with Black Tower's power boost. He could receive a chance to possess shattering void tier battle prowess, and if he could kill a shattering void tier elite, once the show of might was established, the sea race would have to think hard about attacking him. Moreover, his grasp of the Ice Dragon ground blast formation was gradually reaching a higher stage, and when the time came, he'd really possess shattering void tier battle prowess. It was a world where strength was honored, and if he weren't powerful enough, people would only think that he was easy to bully. Dignity and honor were gotten from fighting, not from begging. He came to the eastern side of the city. The Xianyu uncle and nephew had already been escorted over, with chains all over their body, kneeling on the high platform. It was an execution stage where Zhu Long Xian and Qian Feng suffered 100 lashes previously. "Human, you're extremely daring. This will bring death upon yourself, and no one can save you." Xianyu Dongming shouted furiously. "I am a clansman of the North Sea's Xianyu royal family, the lord of the royal family in the future, and if you dare touch a single hair of mine, the royal family's 30+ shattering void tiers will trample over this place and burn you all into ashes." Hearing him say so, many people instantly felt fear. Over 30 shattering void tier elites? It was no joke. Still impenitent when death is near at hand. Ling Han walked over and slapped him such that Xianyu Dongming's mouth was slapped crooked, ended up groaning and unable to speak. Xianyu Cheng knew better, and didn't speak threatening words, and instead tried to coax Ling Han. "Human, we lacked respect before, but we had no ill intentions, and simply wanted to find that woman. How's this? You let us go, we'll compensate you, and if you find that woman, we'll have a great reward for you." Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "You're a fool, or are you taking me for a fool? To actually say that you had no ill intentions now." "No ill intentions? I don't have any ill intentions towards you guys. Just going to kill you." Xianyu Dongming wanted to jump in nervousness. If killing him wasn't ill intention, then what was ill intention? "Pa!" Ling Han slapped Xianyu Dongming on the face, making him stupefied. "I didn't fucking say anything, so why'd you slap me?" Ling Han said indifferently, "Inside my imperial palace, speaking threats and doing as you please, such non-ill intention is really an eye-opener for me. Human, everything is our fault, but please forgive us once for the sake of North Sea's royal family." Xianyu Chang was sincere with his words. So long as he survived, then everything could start over, or else all would come to naught. Ling Han laughed loudly, patted Xianyu Cheng's shoulder, and said, "Now you're quite courteous, but where was this attitude earlier? Unfortunately, we're destined not to get along with each other, because the woman you're looking for is my wife." OSH*T. After being startled for a while, Xianyu Dongming came to his senses. This fucking cuckold. At this moment, he really cursed Ling Han's 18 generations of ancestors. No one could have expected that the person they were looking for was in front of them. Not only was Helian Sun Shui here, even the cuckold was too. "Time for the execution," Ling Han said coldly. Raising the Revere Life Sword high up, he said loudly, "Great Ling Empire's imperial prestige cannot be challenged, and no matter who it is that comes, those who challenge my imperial prestige will all be killed." Pu, one strike for one life, bursting the Xianyu uncle and nephew's hearts. Normally, decapitation would be more impactful, But while Xianyu Doming's head was easy to cut off, Xianyu Cheng's wasn't after all. His was a physique of 9th-tier rare metal. Even using the Revere Life Sword wasn't enough, because Ling Han didn't have enough strength, and it wouldn't be a public beheading at that time, but rather a public sawing, and that would drastically reduce the deterrence power.
Long live the Emperor.
The entire imperial city's subjects all knelt down. Ling Han already declared his position that Great Ling Empire didn't fear any foreign enemies and all violators would be killed. Our emperor is awe-inspiring. Our emperor is imperious. The public execution instantly made Ling Han's image as an emperor deeply rooted into people's hearts, and when the news spread throughout the entire North region, his image as an iron-blooded emperor was obviously firmly established. Ling Han returned to the imperial palace, and just when he wanted to rest, he suddenly felt a warning premonition, and shouted, "Who is it?" Tisk, TSK, TSK, such keen perception.
This lady was slightly careless only once and already has been discovered by you for revealing a shred of presence.
With a sigh, a red-haired beauty with an alluring figure walked out, swinging her ample buttocks and thin waist extremely seductively. She was Yi Shuang's red hair was too obvious.
You!
Ling Han instantly showed a vigilant look. She was a shattering void tier elite, who was also extremely likely to be a high-level one, and he would hardly be a match for her even if he used Black Tower's power boost. Tisk, TSK, what's with your attitude, you don't like seeing this lady? Yi Shuang said unhappily. This lady saw that you had some trouble and especially ran over to help you.
Oh!
Ling Han said with a smile. Really couldn't tell that you're actually a good person. Tisk, if this lady didn't feel that you're especially strange, this lady wouldn't meddle in your business. Yi Shuang stroked her chin, pondered for a while, and then said, and that little girl's also very strange. This lady must take her as a disciple.
Pa Nyo doesn't want it.
Hu Nyo popped out of nowhere and made a face at Yi Shuang. Ling Han gestured with his hand at Hu Nyo and said, "Oh, how do you plan on helping me?" On two aspects. First, this lady can reluctantly accept to be a retired empress or something, and second, you call this the power of the nation?
Really making this lady laugh her head off.
Yi Shuang sneered. Ling Han laughed mischievously and said, how about bestowing you the title of an imperial maid, want it?
To dare tease this lady. Are you tired of living?
Yi Shuang's beautiful eyes narrowed as she emitted a dangerous aura. Ling Han raised both hands with a smile and said, what, you can't take a joke? Can't we still be friends joyfully? Yi Shuang laughed out loud, patted Ling Han's shoulder, and said, youngster, you're quite daring. This lady actually underestimated you. Please advise, what's wrong with my power of nation? Ling Han said with a serious look. Chapter 768. Totem. You should ask where it's right. Yi Shuang shook her head, looking like she looked down upon him. Ling Han accepted it with an open mind, and said, please point it out. Yi Shuang started to create difficulties, and said, where's the tea? The present for acknowledging a master? Brat, you're not really thinking about getting things for free, right? 1. Hee, are you for free? 2. Ling Han said with a smile. Yi Shuang glared at him and said, brat, you're seeking death again. Ling Han nodded to have the palace maids deliver fragrant tea and fruits, and said, Teacher Yi, please sit and allow your student to ask for guidance.
Yes.
Yi Shuang sat upright and said, seeing that you're fairly sincere, this lady will kindly instruct you. She coughed lightly, and went on, in the divine realm, countries are divided into a total of 4 levels. Heaven's Court, Sovereign's Court, Emperor's Court, and King's Court, with Heaven's Court being the highest, and King's Court the lowest. Each level has strict limits decided by the size of the country's territory and the quality of elites, definitely not whatever you want to call it. Theoretically, it's impossible for a mayfly world to produce a sovereign court. It's not qualified enough. Ling Han immediately said, before, Fatima established Purple Moon King's Court, but now it's Purple Moon Emperor's Court 3. I didn't think that Fatty was that unreliable. Yi Shuang nodded and said, that Fatty had been buried for so many years, and was cocky to dare claim it was an emperor's court. Fortunately, he's not in the divine realm, or it'd be bulldozed. Then how can it be called an emperor's court? Ling Han asked. You don't have to think about this now. If you can really successfully split open the skies, you'll know eventually. Now, you just be wasting time thinking about it. Yi Shuang waved her hands and continued, in reality, your king's court doesn't live up to its name and needs a shattering void tier elite to keep watch over it. Ling Han shrugged and said, it's useless to talk about this now, we'd better talk about something more practical. Yi Shuang rolled her eyes at him and said, how can I explain it clearly without speaking more in detail? But you say don't even think about it now and then not qualified enough. I really don't get the point. Ling Han sighed. The point is coming right up. Have some patience, all right? Yi Shuang said. Establishing a nation is easy. But if you want to extract the power of nation, it definitely doesn't suffice to just establish a nation. Power of nation, a nation's influence, its fortune. Where does it come from? It's your subjects' faith in this country and their dependence on the country, which then allows for the power of nation to be extracted. Ling Han knew this. The conversion of popular sentiments allowed the power of the nation to be extracted, or else the power of the nation would be empty talk. However, normal people can't possibly have seen you, and a nation is an abstract existence, so how will your subjects have faith? Yi Shuang asked. What? Ling Han fell into deep thought and said, then what should I do? You need a totem to be the nation's symbol, and through this totem, popular sentiments can aggregate while you extract the power of the totem. This is the correct way of the power of the nation, Yi Shuang said. Ling Han gave an O and asked curiously, you're quite clear about divine realm situation, could you be from the divine realm? You guess. Yi Shuang wasn't willing to give a definite answer. Ling Han didn't dwell on this point, and said, then how's the totem made? That's easy. You can find some arbitrary thing and place it in the ancestral shrine, then spread the portrait thereof all over the nation for people to worship. Naturally, the power of faith will be produced, and as time passes, after the totem aggregates enough faith, it can also produce a spiritual will to protect this nation. In the divine realm, if a great war occurs between nations, whichever nation suffers the loss will have its totem weakened, and the winner will have theirs strengthened. This is the foundation of a nation. As a nation's symbol, the totem. How could it be arbitrary? Ling Han began to think seriously as to what he would choose to be the totem. The first subconscious reaction would obviously be the true dragon. Dragon, the son of heaven, blessed by the heavens. However, he just killed 2 people of the sea race with true dragon's blood, so taking the true dragon as a totem seemed somewhat unjustifiable. Besides, Ling Han didn't think that true dragons were really extremely powerful. 9 dragons tyrant body art could grant the power of 9 true dragons, and annihilating dragon star arrow was said to even be able to kill dragons, so true dragons apparently weren't superior and inviolable in the divine realm. Then why not use Black Tower? Black Tower secrets couldn't be leaked, but fixing a tower-shaped totem, who would associate it with the Black Tower? After all, there were quite a few tower-shaped spirit tools, but none of them could compare to the Black Tower. Yes, it's decided. Ling Han smiled mischievously and said, "In the future, how about you stay to be worshipped and give some advice in ordinary times? You can help dismiss experts if they come too." Then what benefits does this lady have? Eat the food here as you please. You think this lady is a chow hound? Yi Shuang said sourly. Chow hounds are quite good, the more you eat, the more you grow. Hunyo said in all seriousness, looking somewhat enviously at Yi Shuang's breasts, which heaved and could compare with the greatly alluring Zhu Xian airs. Yi Shuang laughed heartily, walked over to hug Hunyo forcibly, and said, "Such a cute and playful little girl, this lady really wants to hug her all day." "Damn it, Nyo doesn't want your hugs." Hunyo struggled repeatedly. Ling Han ignored them. Yi Shuang was of unknown origin, but didn't seem to have ill intentions, so he let Hunyo play with her. He set about designing Black Tower's totem and changed it slightly. Although it still looked like a black tower, it was still considerably different from the one in his dantian. He immediately issued an imperial edict to use it as the nation's totem and symbol and transmit it to every corner of the North region. Of course, to turn it into a true totem and make it become a sort of faith obviously wasn't something to be done in a short period of time. According to Yi Shuang's statement, after the totem formed, a corporeal form of the totem would be formed on top of the imperial palace to guard the imperial city. The larger the nation's territory, the stronger the strength of the subjects, and the more united the people's hearts were, the stronger the totem. He carefully recalled that neither the 9 nations of the desolate north nor Purple Moon Emperor's court had the existence of a totem. It seemed that similar to him, they didn't know anything, and just knew to establish a nation. Fatima had to be reminded, perhaps the reason he'd failed to split open the skies the last time was connected to totems. With Yi Shuang's help, Ling Han was obviously a bit surer, and he also finally thoroughly grasped the Ice Dragon Ground Blast Formation and created 108 formations eyes in the Black Tower. 108 short swords were distributed around him as he threw them out. Because he'd personally created these formations eyes, he didn't need to control them with much effort. Each short sword automatically landed in the corresponding position, floating in the air. The formation patterns emitted a faint light, and the world's spirit chi instantly gathered, condensing into a white pillar. The temperature dropped drastically. Even more spirit chi swirled by as the white pillar changed rapidly, turning into an ice dragon. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.